30 seconds, 30 seconds. Ten-second warning, 10-second warning. All right, we'll call this Finance Committee meeting to order. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here on this Monday at 6. We start our following meetings with the land acknowledgement. We respectfully acknowledge that we are on the treaty and traditional territory of the Mississauga and Anishinaabe. We offer our gratitude to the First Peoples for their care for and teachings about our earth and our relations. May we honor those teachings. We'll now have 30 seconds to reflect. Please stand for the singing of the national anthem. The Council for the City of Peterborough recognizes the principles contained in the Constitution and the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. All right, confirmation of minutes, November 6th, 2023, moved by Councillor Vasiliadis. Any comments or questions, errors or omissions? We'll take a vote and e-scribe. Yeah. All right. And that is carried. Mr. Clerk, any disclosure of pecuniary interest this evening?
Chair, I see none at this time.
All right, we do have a presentation by Public Health on Wednesday, and all the reports and communications will be tomorrow. So with that, we will move to our highlights book and start on page 26. Before we do that, Mr. Freeman, did you want to make some introductory comments about the budget and the section in front of us this evening?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and staff are pleased to be able to participate this week in the detailed budget review by Finance Committee. Of course, it will be a busy week, and if you would permit me, I do have a bit of good news to just start it off with. Staff today received and updated 2024 assessments from MPAC. And we did have a slight pickup in terms of the assessments that we received for the 2024 year that would reduce the all-inclusive rate by 0.1. So the 9.59 effectively becomes 9.49 with that change. And I know we'll get to that section on Wednesday, but I didn't want to keep that good news to myself. I wanted to just share it with committee. And we have a number of departments that will kick off this evening in terms of the budget overview, and then we're looking forward to discussing council, the CAO's budget, finance and corporate support services, and then legislative services. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Mr. Freeman, for that, and for all your hard work and your team's work as well. All right, with that, we will start. So any questions or comments on page 26? Councillor Reel, 26?
Through the chair to the CEO, certainly with the reorganization, what measurements, efficiencies, and productivity and cross-training opportunities have you do? I don't see anything here. You've made changes here to the org chart, but here, well, what's the cost-benefit analysis of doing all of this here? Or when is council going to see that?
Through you, Mr. Chair, very good question, Councillor. I just want to say that the changes just happened about 1.5 months ago. So you will see the cost efficiencies and detail a report coming back to the council within next year, within 6 months.
Through the chair of the CEO, certainly when we went to the commissioner model, certainly at that time we had directors, and certainly we reduced the directors when we went to commissioners, and now that we're back in, we seem to be increasing that number of the commissioners. Is this a overall plan that you have that you're going to share with council? That the org chart here is probably going to change, and certainly there are going to be some names on that are fitted in here, because it looks like you're moving away from when we had, I think, 5 directors. Now we had 3 commissioners. Now we're up to 5 again. So when are you going to share that plan with council?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So if you see this whole reorg is about the future. So I have not gone about the previous legacies here, like what model used to be there. And this model is purely based for the future efficiency. So again, which I said that I will be sharing with the council. We have a workshop in the month of February next year. So during that time, I'll be bringing a few things for the council's consideration, and I will explain there.
Chair to the CEO, I mean, my comments are not to be argumentative or anything like this. I just want to get my head around what's happening here. There seems to be a lot of things in flow here. So I just want to get when we might be able to share your vision with the rest of council.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I fully understand. And that's why I said that within the next 6 months, I will be bringing this to make any comment saying that, oh, I'll be promising this. It's too early for me. So you will see 2 reports, one in the February and one within the somewhere in the June.
Thank you, CEO Reyna. Thank you, Councillor Reel. Before we proceed, we just need a mover to open the 2024 budget debate. So moved by Councillor Mayor Leal, and that allows us to start the discussion. So Councillor Burke.
Yeah, I think just through the chair to the committee and to everyone, I guess that based on Councillor Riel's comments and also based on what the theme of the budget has been in this first section, like is it time for council to look at how we're hiring? Because the problem for me reading through these first parts of the budget has been that we have in the budget outline a whole bunch of hires that represent a huge portion of what we're spending, and then it's implied that we as council made the decision for these hires. There's a report attached to it. It says in the budget outline that these were council approved hires. But then when you look back through the reports, there's a lot of ambiguity to that, you know? And I'm not saying that anything was done with ill intentions, but to me, it always seems like from some of these reports that it would come, these decisions to add these hires, including the one here on the organizational chart that represents, I think, a 50% increase on the CAO budget, is like, help me understand here how council is going to have oversight to these hires. Because it seems to me like we pass reports with short, midterm, and long-term strategies, and embedded in those strategies are hires. And then what we found in this budget is that a lot of those hires have just been implemented. So I don't have an answer, but I guess I'm asking my colleagues that have experience, is this the right time for us at council to develop some sort of strategy to look at these hires, because we're seeing what a big impact they have on the budget and on the residential taxpayer.
All right, thank you, Councillor Burke. Councillor Duguay.
Thank you, Chair Beamer. With respect to the organizational chart, I'm satisfied with the structure that's been presented. What CAO Reina is doing is reassigning established staff with slight modifications. They're not quantum leaps within our overall structure. So we're moving elements around to create what our CAO is identifying as a model that will move our city on an appropriate progressive basis. Associated with that restructuring may be our decision through budget to hire some additional staff. But I don't see that the restructuring is contingent, that they're two separate matters from my perspective. I also understand our role as councillor. We don't necessarily hire staff, but we can recommend through the budget process that certain staff be hired that would be new to our corporation. The restructuring is appropriate. It aligns with our strategic plan. It's been explained to us in principle. We need to let this move forward. It's the same people. We're just moving around. It's moving the sand in the sandbox, if you will.
Thank you very much, Councillor Duguay. Any further comments or questions to page 26? Councillor Baldwin-Riel. Councillor Baldwin.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. I wouldn't, I don't want to reference page 26, but I do want to reference page 6, which talks about, and page 6 references page 283, which talks about staff made a decision about identified needs. And there are a lot more identified needs that are coming forward with this particular budget. I suspect because of the proposed tax rate. So I have no problem with the structure. I think we're moving in the right direction. We're looking at Peterborough 2050, and I hope I'm alive to see 2050. I'll be 95 years young. So let's get going. Let's get onto this budget, and let's make some good decisions, Mr. Chair.
You, Councillor, you'll be there. Councillor Riel.
To the chair, and piggybacking on Councillor Burke, I think the point that he was trying to make, I can't remember last January what was presented here to council on behalf of staff of the hires. But I look on the page and there's 38.8 hires, and you try to visualize in your mind what happened in January, what happened in February, what happened even last month of the hires. But it's interesting, a email train here, and certainly I think it was highlighted that council should expect to see future budgetary financial impacts as staff carry out council's direction. So we give direction and say we want to do a certain thing, but it may be 4 employees that need to be hired to do that. So I think that's where for me, that's what is missing, is that to do the things we want them to do, there's going to be a component where staff need to be hired to do the job. But that's the missing link for me, until there's a sober second thought of looking on the page, I think it's page 6 or whatever it is, of all the hires, and that's 38.5. Then there's below the line hires. I think that's where the point that Councillor Burke is trying to make is we hired all these things, we give you direction, but there seems to be that vacuum of how it's going to be done, and this is what staff has done to carry out our direction. No, not saying that we didn't okay some of these hires, but I can't remember what the hell happened a year ago. I'm just saying there needs to be a better vehicle from what we're doing here now, because it has a huge tax implication. These are millions of dollars to hire staff. So I think there needs to be a better way of doing this here to give us that sober second thought, or to bring us up to speed or where we are on the budget, whether that's quarterly or whatever. Remember that you did this, you passed it, and this is the implication for it, just so that we don't get here tonight and we could spend 3 nights or 4 nights arguing or saying we should take this out or we should take that out. There was a reason for us doing it. But if all we're going to do is spend 3 or 4 nights bartering back and forth, I have no intentions. I can do it and I will do it, but I think the process of the budget has to change, but I'm getting ahead of myself. The whole budget process for me, and this is my 14th budget, has to change.
Thank you, Councillor Rail. CEO Reyna, can we have that discussion in February about the whole budget and how perhaps we can change it in best practices? Is that possible in February?
Thank you, through you, Chair. If you, I will humbly say that if you notice that we have already changed a lot the budget process, and this is not a writing on the wall, because if you see earlier, you used to get 3 books. We have brought it down to 1. You never used to get presentation in the month of August. We started those presentations. So going forward in the February when we all meet and the lesson learned and the benchmarking. So we will, if we are fully open to change the things, and things will change. We want to make it more robust, more transparent, and more consistent. Thank you.
Thank you very much, CEO Reyna. Councillor Burke?
Yeah, just to clarify, from what Councillor Duguay was saying, I'm not asking to have, as a councillor, to have oversight on a specific person to hire. No, what I'm talking about is, for example, the municipal law enforcement hires. Okay, those hires were contained in a report that we approved in principle, and that report had an immediate, a midterm, and a long-term outline in principle. And somewhere between where that report got approved and now, certain aspects of that report have been embedded into the 2024 budget. And it's fine. I'm just asking that as council, I would have expected to have a follow-up report to the consultant's report that got passed in principle to say, hey, this is how the city of Peterborough is going to move forward this thing that you passed. And this is how it aligns with that consultation report. That's it. That's what I'm asking for. I'm not trying to dig into operational day-to-day hires or anything like that. I'm trying to say that, to me, there's like just a missing link between the things that we approve and what some of the things that we're seeing in this budget as a big upheaval.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Burke. Councillor Baldwin?
Yeah, just for, Mr. Chair, just for clarification, respectfully, I think that's the budget process. There are many programs, services, potential hires embedded in the budget and the budget books we've been going through. And I think the FTE was 38.4. Council could, as I understand it, this is only my 9th budget, not 14. My understanding, and I'll go to Mr. Freeman, if we don't want what's in the book, we have the right to take it out. If we don't want to, if we don't want to have a look at the enforcement bylaw, and we've already hired, 4 or 5 people, let's say, that are embedded in the program. If we decide not to approve the bylaw, we'll have 4 or 5 people sitting around twiddling their thumbs doing nothing every day. That's my understanding of that. So you kind of can't have your cake and eat it too. I mean, some of these are important, as Councillor Burke has articulated, to put forward the programs that we've asked staff to do. But through the budget process, if we don't want to hire 38.4 FTEs over the next 3 or 4 days, we can make a decision collectively not to hire 38.4. Maybe it's 28.2. Maybe it's 0. But as I understand it, that's the process, and it's financed, and it happens now. I mean, maybe I could go through you to Mr. Freeman, or have I got that correct, Mr. Freeman?
Mr. Chairman, the councillor is right on. If council does not wish to hire these individuals and move forward with some of the direction that you've already provided to staff, it's your prerogative to pull it out. Staff are carrying out your wishes. You gave direction. to the councillor's point, you referenced the report in February, the municipal law enforcement that laid out a series of objectives, 24, I believe, short, medium, and long term. This is the result of we're carrying out the direction that you've approved in February. Admittedly, we didn't come back to say, are you really sure that you want to go in this direction? We just assume you make the direction, you give us direction, and we're carrying it out. That's the way it works. At budget time, if you don't want to go in that direction, then it's your prerogative to change it.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Baldwin. Any further, Councillor Lachika?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. With regard to page 6, I was wondering if through you I could ask our people and culture lead Jen McFarland. There are people that are already part of our complement, are there not, that are currently employed here and are not going to be new hires per se, but just contracts are different. I wonder if you could speak to that, because some of these specifics will perhaps just shed further light on the number 38. Thank you.
Great. Through the chair, that is correct. Just using my division as an example, we have 9 FTEs and 2 temporary employees that are included in the, I think it's 38 positions that we're looking to make FTEs. So that's not adding 2 new positions to our division. It's simply taking the existing complement and making them all full-time. And I suspect that that's the case through many of the positions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That does shed some light. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. McFarland. Thank you, Councillor Lachika. Mayor Leal?
Thanks very much, Mr. Chair. I find it intriguing, the municipal law enforcement assistant and the municipal law enforcement officers. The reason they're in here is because members of council want them in here. We have a whole series of bylaws in the city of Peterborough that are not being enforced. The police have told us they're low priority for them, so they're not looking into them. So we have to put together a team to make sure that our bylaws are enforced. Seems to me that's what the broader people in Peterborough want to do. The other part on the bottom here, recommended for critical service enhancements. A number of these in this category, of course, are self-financing through the activity of building permits, but the others just frankly strengthen the organization from an accountability and transparency perspective. So they're necessary to protect the interests of the citizens of Peterborough.
Thank you very much, Mayor Leal. Councillor Reel?
The chair, I mean, here we go again. We're going to get into an argument. The point that I'm trying to make is going forward, there needs to be a meeting with us and the commissioners of what the strategic plan is for 2025 or 24. What is the hires you need to do your job? Whether that is in June or next year at this time in October and November, what do you need to do to move the city forward? To make the argument with me at a council meeting in February, this motion come forward, you told us you wanted to do this, and now we're hiring the people. The sober second thought is looking at the page of 38.5 or 38.8 hires. I'm saying going forward, we need to know what it is to move the city forward. And then that is where the bartering stops. When somebody says, from one of the commissioners says, I need 5 people next year, and these are the 5 I need. And that's where council needs to say yay or nay. And then we know what the bottom line is going to be for our budget. Not a staggering budget at 9.56. It could be a budget at 6 or 7%. That's what I'm saying is the missing link. I'm not saying that we didn't okay it and we sent and to micromanage the commissioners or senior staff in doing their job. I'm saying there's a disconnect, and we need to know on behalf of the taxpayers, this is what's going to be needed to be hired to do the job you want us to do. This is the cost associated with it. Or we say, no, we're not going to do it this year. You can't have everything you want. Rome was not built in a day. I have a 5-year commitment That's my best before date is 2026. And I better perform in 2026, not do everything in 1 year. So that's the point I'm trying to make. Not get in here and argue over the semantics of this here on this page. And I can do that. We can go back to this page and the hires there are, you quantify number one, right through to 38 and tell me why you need it. If you want to spend the whole week here justifying your hires, I can do that. And that'll take up a hell of a lot of time of doing that. If that's what you want to happen. What I'm trying to do, the point I'm trying to make is the system we have in place is not working. I want to know to go in a meeting and saying, for me to run my department, I need 5 planners. What's the cost? Will you give me 5 planners? We'll only give you 2. That's the point I'm trying to make. Right now, I'm looking at here, and I'm not saying all of these here were okayed. There's probably half of these, 19 or whatever it was, or maybe more that were okayed. The rest in there's the below the line, the wish list. So that's the point I'm trying to make. The system for me, after 14 budgets, is not working. And it's going to get worse. And this is the sober second thought of almost a 10% increase to try and drive the business. What are we going to do moving forward? That's the point I'm trying to make.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Reel. Any further comments or questions? Okay. Comments, questions, 27, City Council? Councillor Burke?
Yeah, can you give me 2 seconds, please?
Sure, sure.
Yeah, so through the chair, I have what could be a motion. I guess I'll do it as a motion. I'll make the motion and then, but I'm just absolutely open to working with my council colleagues. I would have given you guys all a heads up, but I just thought about this at about 4 o'clock this afternoon, as I was looking through the book. So Mr. Chair, should I read the motion and then speak to it?
Yep.
Thank you. So my motion is that council travel expense claims for conferences and training will include reimbursement for kilometers using the city's current posted mileage rate.
Can you just read that one more time just for the clerk?
Yeah, I have copies for the clerk.
Okay, that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
So I'll grab it from you. But yeah, go ahead.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks. So here's the thing. This is what happens when there's not a clearly defined travel policy. And I'm self-employed, so I have a sense of what I can write off in terms of my kilometers versus what would be considered like a car allowance. Okay. And so this is not to enter into a debate to talk about our councillor remuneration and what the car allowance is. This is just to clarify a point to be made when we as councillors have to submit our expenses for travel. And I've had a situation as a councillor where there's been situations where I have been able to submit my kilometers and be reimbursed based on the city's rate. And then other times I've been told that I couldn't do that. And the line of separation for me is how we're taxed. So we're taxed on a car allowance, which to my understanding of it is meant to cover our day-to-day use of our vehicles, deep depreciation, fuel, etc. Okay. This car allowance is meant to cover those things. So that's like me driving my van with the compostable bags to the town hall meeting or to the McDonald Street thing, or like to go to my PHC meetings or to come here. And that's for what that is. But travel exists outside of that. And we know it does because we're able to submit reimbursement claims for things like food and hotels and the expense that the conferences cost. And so all I'm saying is by this motion, I just want to clarify that when council goes to these conferences, we should be able to claim our kilometers. We're all using our own vehicles. This is an expense. And that's why I made the motion, just to offer some clarity to that process. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Burke. So moved by Councillor Burke. You all have it in front of you. Speakers to that? Speakers to this motion in front of us? Speakers? Councillor Baldwin?
Mr. Chair, I can appreciate where the councilor's coming from. I didn't submit a travel claim for AMO because I was under the understanding that, you couldn't submit for travel expenses when you're receiving a monthly amount of money for your vehicle use on city business. So I can understand where the councilor's coming from. He's looking for some clarity. I can appreciate where he's coming from. So that's the only comment I have to make there, Mr. Chair. There may be some ambiguity, and this may be a good clarifying motion to bring forward.
Thank you very much, Councillor Baldwin. Any further comments or questions to the motion in front of us? Councillor LaChica?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And just to the previous speaker's point, I think there is reimbursement for 407 tolls and for parking if we're at a conference out of the city at a distance. So there is a bit of confusion because I certainly think that our day-to-day travel expenses and kilometrage as councillors in our own jurisdiction, that's what I would have understood the coverage to be in terms of our remuneration and what we know. But there is something different about being in Toronto or London, Ontario for an important municipal gathering of councillors from across Ontario. It's something that is quite a distance there and back, and I wouldn't have thought it would not have been covered. So I think it would be good to have some consistency and clarity about our expenses when we're at a conference that is municipally geared. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor LaChica. Comments or questions? All right, moved by Councillor Burke, sorry. Moved by Councillor Burke. We'll take a vote and e-scribe. And that is carried. All right, any further comments or questions to page 27? 28, City Council Operating Budget. 29, CAO Officer Department Operating Budget. Councillor Hakey, yes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And I think to Mr. Freeman, our CAO, my understanding was we see some of these increases of 50% and 58% and so on. That's because we've shifted the departments. So it's moving, we'll see an offsetting decrease in some of them. Is that correct?
True, Mr. Chair, that's right.
Thank you, Councillor Hakey. Page 30. People and Culture, page 31. Finance and Corporate. Yeah, Councillor Burke.
Thank you, Chair Beamer.
What page?
I don't have a page number actually here.
Okay.
I'm on the People and Culture operating budget.
Yep.
You see it? Page 3. I don't have it, do I? Oh yeah.
And this is to all councillors, just a friendly reminder when you speak, if you could just reference the page you're on, just so everyone can get to that page and maybe even the section. So 31.
Thank you, Chair Beamer. This is just the same question as the previous speaker. Those people and culture costs that are over budget, will the efficiencies be found elsewhere?
I will pass it on to Director People and Culture first, and then I will talk about the efficiencies.
Through you, Mr. Chair. The additional expenses in the people and culture budget, some of them have to do with the two positions that we're looking to make full-time, and other expenses are expenses that we haven't previously budgeted for that we should be budgeting for. So for example, bargaining, we haven't previously put in additional costs for the cost of bargaining, but we have added it now to be proactive so that we're not having to worry about being over budget later in the year.
Thank you, Councillor Burke. Councillor Reel?
Through the chair, I just want to thank Ms. McFarland and her team for a well-deserved job in negotiating a settlement with ATU. Certainly, transit is a huge plus for the city here, and as we move the city forward, and certainly to get a settlement, certainly I want to congratulate you and your team. It's two sides. It's the city and certainly ATU, and I think you come to a final conclusion, and certainly I want to thank you for your hard work. So thank you very much.
Great, thanks, Councillor.
Thank you, Councillor Reel. All right. Finance and Corporate Support Services Department, 32. Finance Capital Budget, 33. Councillor Burke.
Thanks. I'm back on page 32.
Okay.
What's the reason for the 80% over budget for strategic communications and service Peterborough?
Through Mr. Chair, that accounts for the creation of Service Peterborough. So there are 5 positions that are internally moving over to the division. So that accounts for the 80%, plus 1 position that's within communications transferring to Service Peterborough.
Thank you. So through the chair, like this is an example of the conversation that led us off. Was there any idea of the operational budget in that report where we all approved Service Peterborough to happen? I remember it was like 600,000 or something for the renovations. Did you guys, the staff, give us any sense of what the operational cost would be for that? Because it's a huge cost.
Mr. Freeman, Mr. Wedley?
Mr. Chairman, I'll defer to Mr. Wedley, but just a couple of comments from myself. So when staff brought forward the report for Service Peterborough, the costs that were identified were for the physical renovations that would be required. The staff that were contemplated that Mr. Wedley referred to, most of them were lateral transfers from other areas into this budget. So there was no net impact at that point in time. The one position that was referenced in the previous conversation is the Service Peterborough manager, and I'll invite Mr. Wedley if he would like to make some additional comments about that. That's a very exciting initiative, and we're looking forward to getting on with it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to supplement Mr. Freeman's comments, the majority of that 80% is existing positions. The one new position, as Mr. Freeman mentioned, is the Service Peterborough manager. That's a critical position to fulfill the vision as expressed by council on Service Peterborough. It's going to include the daily management of the team as well as quality assurance and growing the vision of Service Peterborough to be the one-stop shop. The staff that are coming over are bringing over their existing responsibilities and activities by implementing a customer relationship management platform, as well as taking a broader view of customer service within the corporation. We'll be able to bring in more activities to the front line in that one point of contact, as opposed to referring them to program areas throughout the corporation, improves customer service overall. Thank you.
Thank you. And then through the chair, since these staff are being brought in laterally, are we going to find savings in other parts of the budget?
Through Mr. Chair, we do expect that there will be efficiencies by bringing the team together from various areas, and that those efficiencies will assist with providing greater customer service and reducing the need for capacity elsewhere in terms of handling those interactions and those service requests. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wedley, for that. Mr. Freeman, Councillor Burke, thank you. All right, page 33. Other capital budget, finance, 34. Emergency risk management, operating budget, 35. Councillor Duguay, 35.
I was premature in raising my hand. I want to speak to page 36.
But we'll let it go. 36.
Thank you. I appreciate your benevolence, Mr. Chairman. A very brief question. The staff position, as I understand it, would be, could benefit from $50,000 funding. Do we have some assurance that that funding will be sustained?
Through you, Mr. Chair. The province has indicated that they are going to be establishing transfer payment for nuclear emergency management on an ongoing basis. Currently, there are 10 municipalities in the province that are designated with some role or responsibility for nuclear emergency planning. There certainly is a greater effort or coordination plan that is rolling out in the province currently with respect to nuclear emergency management. And we feel confident that that transfer payment is going to continue in the future.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jody.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Councillor Degay. Councillor Baldwin, 35, 36.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. It's not on the script, but I wonder if Mr. Noble might be able to answer the question. Jody, do we ever get any additional money or any money at all from the province with respect to the Derico? And I know we were close to the threshold. I had asked the question some time ago if they would consider prorating it and giving just something back. I think the number was somewhere around 4 million. Is there any update you might be able to provide?
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. We have had several conversations really since May of last year with the province regarding our funds. Unfortunately, the city does not meet the current criteria under the Municipal Disaster Assistance Program. There were subsequent conversations. In fact, Mayor Leal sent a letter to the Premier's office on behalf of the city and staff to inquire about additional funding as well. To date, we've not received any word that we would be eligible for funding through that program. I do know that the province has had meetings with the federal level of government, which oftentimes will contribute to funds post-disaster. In fact, probably about 2 months ago, I did receive a call from a colleague at the provincial level. They were in Ottawa having meetings with federal representatives, and they were using Peterborough as an example, a community that didn't qualify or wasn't eligible for that funding. So I know it's being looked at. I haven't heard of any potential changes with that funding program, but I know that that is certainly something that's being considered.
Thanks for that. A supplementary, if I could, Mr. Chair. The reason for the question, Jody, is that, perhaps the province's threshold is too high. I don't know how many municipalities out of the 444 met the threshold to get some money back. But if we're finding that, 444 of the 444 municipalities getting no money back, and we see their insurance rates are climbing exorbitantly every year, that doesn't compute. I'm not blaming you at all. Don't shoot the messenger. I get that, but something has to be done. And whether we send a message of some sort through AMO to the province about this particular issue, we're getting hammered on both ends. We pay high insurance rates with high deductibles, $50,000 and $100,000, and yet when we get a disaster like that, and we have our risk management staff and our emergency service staff go out and help the community, there's nothing coming back to the municipality. Everything's going out. And that particular scenario, I think, is extremely disappointing. And it's a lot of, it's not wasted taxpayer money. We need to insure ourselves. But there's something's not wrong. Something's not right with the scenario that I just described. So thanks for the update. And perhaps council at some point in time, your worship will see fit to take this on and maybe send something to the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, because if we're affected, I can pretty much guarantee every other municipality in the province of Ontario is affected as well. Thank you.
If I may, Chair, it is a topic or has been a topic of discussion amongst my colleagues. There is a regions and single tiers emergency management group that meets regularly. I think the CAO also has a group and I know the mayors also meet regularly as well. That has been a topic of conversation. We've had meetings with representatives from Emergency Management Ontario and the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing to express our concerns. But certainly any additional lobbying or support from council would certainly be welcome.
Thank you. I do have Councillor Burke and LaChica. So before you go, or do you need, yep, so if you could just stay. Councillor Burke.
Yeah, thanks through the chair and sparked by the previous speaker's discussion. Have you talked to our new government liaison about those issues?
I have not, but I definitely will. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Burke. Councillor LaChica.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Through you to Ms. DeNoble, I'm just curious if there was anything provided in writing from the province around the criteria, the number of municipalities that did receive funding, any sort of measure that was indicated that was the threshold, and where was our criteria, or what was the criteria where was our not met?
So the criteria is clearly established. In fact, Commissioner Friedman and Ms. Poplinski and myself met with representatives from the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing not long after the windstorm last May to review the criteria for funding. Not to get into all of the details, but the basic formula is that we need to exceed 3% of our own purpose taxation. So we were about $1 million short when we did the calculations of being eligible for funding through the current disaster assistance program.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Ms. DeNoble, for all your work. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor LaChica. Questions, comments, 36? Strategic Communications and Service Peterborough operating budget, 37. Councillor Burke, 37.
Yeah, thanks through the chair. I'm surprised, like, I thought there would be more discussion about some of these portions of the budget where we have actually a chance to find efficiencies. We've heard that this is the time to do it. You know, I'm sorry for taking up so much of the floor. But again, this is an example where I know there's probably a great intention to do this, but I just need to find some clarity because we have $425,000 in an operating budget for a new position, frontline staff, but it also talks about general and operating costs. So are we getting, is that money for 2 staff people? Can we just, can we get like clarification, please, as to what the 425 is going to?
Through Mr. Chair, that's the 6 existing staff plus 1 new staff member that's recommended in the budget.
So through the chair, how does that go from 0 to 425 if we're using existing staff?
Through Mr. Chair, that's due to their being transferred from other operating areas, other operating divisions.
Mr. Friedman?
Mr. Chairman, if I could just supplement the comments. So because the physical renovation has not happened, the clerks in the tax office, that's the step 1, has yet to happen. So it's a future event as far as this budget is concerned. To your point, I guess we could have presented it that to allocate it in the 2023, but council just approved the moving forward in 2023, the actual physical renovation, the detailed design has happened, the tender will be let here shortly, the works will be done, and at that point in time, then the staff will move. Right now, today, they're still separate, hence they're separate in the budget. So the efficiencies that the councillor is talking about is going to start firstly with the finance, the tax group, tax section, and the clerk section, because there's redundancies right in those two, just considering those two. There's redundancies that we want to eliminate.
I'm just wondering if this is the time to maybe defer this spending until, like the Commissioner Freeman said, until we build it, and then come back to council with what it's actually going to cost us.
CAO Reyna, did you want to make a comment?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to say that when you are asking for the efficiencies, so when the director communication says that the 6 people have moved lateral, so they are taking those duties above and beyond their current roles. So that's the efficiencies. So they are shouldering additional responsibilities. So we are, whatever they were hired for, we are giving them more duties here. So when the service Peterborough comes into the picture, these people will be doing above and beyond other duties as assigned, which were not the part of their previous job. So that's the efficiency.
So then, please, the money, the $425,112, that's not just coming on top of everything else. A lot of that is coming from other places. Is that correct? Thank you.
Exactly.
Amazing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Burke. 37. Capital budget, 38. Councillor Reel, 38.
Through the chair, I see Scott is here tonight, and it's on branding. What happened to the branding exercise that we went through? I think the outpost, they had a different name at the time, but now the outpost with out of the ordinary and the wave or the bacon logo. Is this building off of that, or is this a whole new branding process? We seem to spend a whole bunch of money rebranding the city, going from green and white to blue and white, and putting the wave or the bacon on the side of the truck and out of the ordinary. So where are we?
Mr. Wedley?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. This has been an ongoing transition to the new corporate branding from the old orange P that was throughout the community. It's been gradual because some of the longer term assets, such as branding on vehicles or signs, are quite expensive. And what we try to do is to replace the branding as that asset is being replaced. But some of the longer term ones, like signs, we would do outside of their replacement schedule. So that's what this capital budget is for. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Councillor Reel. Mayor Leal.
Thanks very much, Mr. Chair. Just a follow-up question, Mr. Wedley. Mr. Wedley, from time to time, do we ever put together a focus group to test out the City of Peterborough branding to get some feedback?
Mr. Chair, no, we have not done that. Definitely open to that conversation, and I know Mr. Reyna has raised a similar idea.
If I follow up, we've during my lifetime, I think we've had about 4 of these branding exercises. We started out, I'd rather be in Peterborough. Number 2 was Peterborough's a natural, and now it's out of the ordinary, I guess. Outside, sorry. So we've had a few of these branding exercises, and I think it's a good idea from time to time. As we said, we'll get a focus group and find out what the public thinks.
Thank you very much. Councillor Burke.
I just want to take this time quickly just to acknowledge my love of the original Peterborough logo. I want to say thank you to city staff for finding and resurrecting these old binders that I use every week. And I think a lot of my friends really love the original orange and maroon logo. I think, in fact, the color scheme is incorporated into the branding for the new Miskin Arena. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Burke. Councillor Hagee.
I just have to make a comment. I remember with Mr. Jackson when we were doing the bacon branding, and one of the questions that I had, I'm glad it was blue, because had it been any other color, people would have thought it was our streets at the time. And Mr. Jackson took it in the vein it was meant. But the other one that somebody mentioned to me was perhaps it could be Peterborough Home of the 4-way stop, because we seem to solve all of our traffic problems with the 4-way signs. Anyways, I do remember that, and Mr. Jackson took it in humor, so I hope everybody else does too.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hagee. All right. 38. Other capital budget, 39. Finance services summary operating budget, 41. Financial services, 42. Faculties and property management summary operating budget, 43. Accessibility, 44. Councillor Duguay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At a previous council meeting relative to accessibility, I thought I'd reference now. I'd made a request that the access fund $25,000 was had supported by the accessibility advice discussed previous, and I'd like to include it in our budget deliberations. I just reference another page.
All right, thank you for that, Councillor Duguay. Councillor Burke.
Through the chair from page 43.
Yep.
Do we, Commissioner or CAO Reina, do we have a strategy to maintain our current infrastructure? I've had a few experiences where buildings haven't been maintained and we've unfortunately had to look at losing them. Can we afford to keep our current buildings that the city of Peterborough owns?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I will pass it on to our facilities manager, but I just want to tell you that currently the way we have invested in our buildings, there's a lot more investment needed to bring them at the state of good repair. So you can look at the city hall itself. So there I will stop, but I will pass it on to.
Through the chair, I would say at present time, we have a 50-year strategy for capital improvements on our existing facilities in excess of $500 million.
That's it? A 50-year strategy? I didn't really hear, sorry.
Mr. Chairman, so we routinely do facility condition assessment audits. And each year, Mr. McGilvery brings forward the requests that is required. Unfortunately, we're not able to fund all of the requests. Following up on Mr. Reina's comments here as CAO, more investment is needed if we want to maintain the facilities in the way that they should be maintained. And Mr. McGilvery unfortunately gets a little frustrated with us sometimes as senior leadership here and not able to move forward on things that should be moved forward. I'll invite Mr. McGilvery if he wants to add to my comments, but that is it in a nutshell.
I will jump in. So I will be very honest with you because my job is to tell you truth. Our current approach is a band-aid fix, and this is not how the jobs are done now, both the facility maintenance. So I fully acknowledge his frustration because I had a meetings with Richard and all this. So again, it comes to the funding, but we have to strike a balance between the horizontal and vertical infrastructure. But down the lane, I can see the way we are trying to develop a capital plan for our horizontal infrastructure. So we'll be also focusing on the vertical infrastructure.
Thank you very much. Councillor Purnell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If I may, I'd like to go back to page 42 just for a moment. Just basically a bit of a shout out and just to let people realize that there's more ways that we can raise revenue than increase their taxes. We're always looking for other sources of revenue. And so I wanted to just highlight our corporate sponsorship forecasts are more than 3.9 million under the contract in 2024. We have two gentlemen who are bringing that kind of revenue in for us. So that's definitely a self-sustaining position or two. And so I just wanted to highlight that and say thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Purnell. All right, faculties and planning initiatives, 45. Councillor Reel, Vasiliadis, 45. Councillor Reel.
Through the chair, things are going to go right down the toilet here now. On this page here, there's the toilet replacements, and certainly when I was at AMO, and I have no shares in this company, it's called New Toilet or New Smart Toilet, but I think they're about $100,000 each. They have quite a number of features here, certainly security cameras, air disinfecting the cabin by ultraviolet, remote management of it. The list goes on. I think the last one we built was, and I could be wrong, was at Nichols Oval for $500,000. And certainly I'm looking at this numbers here and it looks like it's well over $2 million for washroom replacement when we could actually buy a number of these here and the features here and they're vandal proof and all the rest of that stuff. So I will give this to Mr. Papadopoulos so that he can have this, but this was a company and they've reached out just only now last week to see if we were interested in partnering with them on this here. Not saying that I'm, like I said, I don't have any shares in this company, but certainly if you can, for $1 million, you can buy 10 of them. And certainly I think everybody in the community has talked about the need for washrooms. And certainly this might be the way to go here. So I will give that to Mr. Papadopoulos after we're done. But certainly, I think it's somewhere shy of $2 million for washrooms, a healthy tax bill.
Thank you, Councillor Reel. I have Councillor Vasiliadis, Mayor Leal, and Parnell. Councillor Vasiliadis?
Yes, thank you, Chair. And I do recall, actually, it was years ago, being with Councillor Riel and Councillor Pappas at the time. These washrooms have existed for quite a few years, interesting enough, and they are washrooms that you can program, again, self-cleaning, kind of self-destruct. Like, when it comes to the mirrors, they're stainless steel, so you can't break the mirror. So they're actually good value, but it'd be something to look into. Actually, I just have a question or two. Usually on this page, I see the item under a certain item as a field house, that we were looking at field house in the past. So has that completely, any discussion about a field house off the table? Should, for you two.
Ms. Barnes?
Yeah.
Through the chair. Yes, that was covered during the recent recreation plan that you received in October. So that has been moved off this page for this year. But as we roll that through and roll that out as the strategy in the coming years, you'll see it reappear. So there is discussion going on for Fieldhouse. There's a lot of want for that in the community. So it will reappear in a different format.
Great.
In later years.
So
Thank
still
you.
consideration, but okay.
Absolutely. It's just changed positions in the budget. It's not there this year, but it will come back in next year.
Great, great.
Thank you.
I just have another question.
Yes, of course, absolutely.
And I see, so on page 45, and it's under new splash pads. I know in the last recreation report, like you were speaking of, it singled out Monaghan Ward as needing a splash pad. Now, when I look at 2025, 2026, are there that money for that splash pad, or what would that money be used for? There's in 2025, it's 470,000. 2026, it's 480,000.
Yes, through the chair. So there is a 10-year strategic plan for water play facilities. They are spread across the city. We've just updated it through the recreation master plan as well. So you will see that come through. I couldn't tell you exactly which ward that 2025 money is assigned to. There is some talk about phasing two parts of the Knights of Columbus Park in 2024 and 2025. So it would make sense to put the money there at that point. But every year we do assess it. We look at where the need is in the community. We have a large map of where we've built so far. And at the moment, our focus is really to try to take the wading pools offline. And then we have 2 of those remaining that are still operational. So we would like to take those offline and replace those with water play facilities first, and then move on to other locations throughout the city.
That's great. And one quick question after that.
Absolutely.
Yep. So under Knights of Columbus Park redevelopment, it refers to a pet exercise area. Is that just a dog park? I just need to know. It just popped out at me. Or are other pets allowed to exercise in that area? I'm just curious.
Thank you, through the chair. Good question. It is named as a pet exercise. People do like to take their cats to walk there as well.
Okay, I didn't know that.
But more than anything, yes, it would be for dog exercise, not chinchillas.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Vasiliadis. I have Councillor Purnell and Duguay. Councillor Purnell?
I was going to say that was for dog yoga, but and my understanding is the money for splash pads is actually for Valleymore. That splash pad is in works right now. We were hoping to actually complete that this year, but now it's going to be 2025. It was one of the things that did get pushed out because of the pending tax rate. So I'm not letting that one go. That Valleymore is happening. And what I wanted to raise on this page, Mr. Chair, is I wanted to talk about the Bonneworth Park redevelopment project. We all were wholeheartedly supported the Recreation Master Plan when it was presented to us, and the first big piece to this is the Bonneworth Park redevelopment. That will include the 16 pickleball course as phase 1. And phase 2 is the skateboard park, the bike pump track, the shade shelter, all those sorts of things. And we do have to get it all designed at one time. So in the budget for 2024 is phase 1. But Mr. Chair, I would like to move that we pre-commit the 2025 portion for 2025. If we are going to start this project to be equitable for all of our population, typically it's seniors who use pickleball and younger people that use the skateboard park. We want to make sure that the whole project is complete. So, Mr. Chair, I move that the necessary funding to complete phase 2 of the Bonnerworth Park redevelopment project be pre-committed for the 2025 budget.
Okay, so moved by Councillor Parnell. Speakers to that motion? Councillor LaChica?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I'm really pleased that the councillor has brought that forward. You know, I was just so touched by the delegation around the skate park and the infrastructure changes that are so necessary for the kids in this important town ward park. So I fully support that motion, and it is an intergenerational strategy that we need to have when we think of our parks and recreational facilities. So thanks for the motion, and I encourage the rest to support. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Freeman, sorry. Commissioner Freeman, did you want to make a comment?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And if I could just ask Ms. Barnes if she would just provide some insight into what the 2025 amount includes, and more importantly, what it does not include. And so I just want to make sure we would welcome the pre-commitment conversation because there is some advantages to ensuring that it's moving forward, but I just want to make sure the council is informed about what is not there.
Thank you. Through the chair, just to advise council, the project as outlined in the budget book is for the park, for Bonnerworth Park, to do all of the recreation strategies that were presented in October. What it does not include is any upgrades to Bonnecourt Street with sidewalk. And I do believe that when we go through the public consultation process in 2024, we will see a large number of people that reside on that street that will come forward and specifically ask for that as part of the project. So I just want to make everyone aware that that is not included in the budget that is presented for the project. However, we would look to add that and reassign the budget in 2025 as well. So likelihood would be that there will be some benefits of cost saving to be able to secure pricing for the entire project through 2024 and have the contractor ready to remobilize the site for 2025 and complete the actual project work, but we would have to add and look at the sidewalk on Bonnecourt Street.
Thank you very much for that, Ms. Barnes. So speaking to the motion in front of us, Councillor Reel and Duguay. Councillor Reel? Are you okay? Okay. Gotcha. Okay. On this one, I have Councillor Duguay and then Baldwin and then Parnell on the motion in front of us. Councillor Duguay?
Thank you, Chair Beamer. I will support the motion. The rediscovery or revitalization of Bonnerworth Park is critical. It also will take advantage of its proximity to the McDonald Street Community Center. There's a very healthy synergy that I think our community can look forward to. Perhaps then, if I might, Mr. Chairman, to Ms. Barnes, you referenced possibly sidewalk improvements. Will I'm assuming the public consultation would also consider, I believe, what will be a necessary pedestrian crosswalk from the park to the McDonald Street Community Center?
Through the chair to Councillor Duguay, that's correct. I think there, as you mentioned, a good synergy between the two. There's opportunity for some parking across all of the park and into McDonald Street Activity Centre. So definitely there would be a look at that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's the extent of my query on this particular item. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Duguay. Councillor Baldwin and Parnell. Councillor Baldwin?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair, through you to Ms. Barnes. Sidewalk cost, any estimates on that? Because we're talking about a pre-commitment. Can you give us some idea of what the costs might be for that?
I'm afraid I don't have that number for you. I don't know that I would know the extent of the sidewalk that would be required. I'm assuming that it would come from Monaghan Road down past Hamilton Park to the current trail. That would be my assumption. We would have to do a study of that to see if it would be one side, both sides, and how that would work. So.
Let me ask the question, Mr. Chair, because our treasurer referenced the add-on, and I'm a little reluctant to pre-commit things when I don't know what the final amount is, but on principle, I certainly think that the redevelopment of Bonneworth is an excellent project. So I'll just leave it at that. It'd be nice to have all the dollars and cents in front of us, but unfortunately, we don't have that tonight on the pre-commitment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Parnell and Reel. Councillor Parnell?
Thank you. I'll leave my motion as it is for now, and then I think that's going to pass because we're also supportive of Bonneworth, and then perhaps I can add another motion separately that the pedestrian infrastructure associated with Bonneworth Park on McDonald and Bonnecourt be added as a priority project for 2025. That would give staff the ability, I'm getting the thumbs up, the ability to do all of the design work, do the public consultation about the sidewalk that is part of our process for new sidewalks,
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
So just one motion at a time.
Yes,
So
I'm
let's.
just giving the heads
Yep.
up of my next plan. so
Perfect.
Hopefully everybody understands. Thank you.
Well, perfect. Thank you, Councillor Parnell. So just speaking in front of the motion in front of us right now to pre-commit, Councillor Reel?
Chair to Ms. Barnes, is there any thought gone into, and I'm supportive of the Bonneworth. There's a lot of history here. The Bonneworth itself, and the history of the women that worked at the Bonneworth Mills and stuff like this, certainly Jackson, the association or closeness of Jackson Park. What is the thought of incorporating what you're putting in here? There's a lot of stuff going into this area here of making this a destination spot that people say, well, this is the Bonneworth. There's some history here. And this is also abuts Jackson Park, which has its own history. So what thought has gone into, besides putting a skate park and whatever else amenities are going in there, pickleball, all the rest of their stuff, what is the plan for this park that people say it isn't just a bunch of stuff dropped in on a piece of property? There's actually a history component to this area. It has a stellar component with the manufacturing base that was here in the city. Certainly the woolen mills that is certainly associated with this was one of the first strikes by the women for increased pay. So what is the thoughts going forward here with some history to this area of this park?
Through the chair, as we develop the project, we always look at the history of the site. So certainly we would do that through the consultation process and through the design process as well. We draw on the history to sort of identify what the areas are and create a significant project. I think the fact that we now have the activity centre just across the way there, and you saw through the recreation master plan that was presented in October that we have an overall strategy to create a hub there for recreation, which will live on the history of that site. But also we have underway for next year, I understand, a review of Jackson Park as well and the heritage of Jackson Park and the history there. So we're also looking at that. And there is connectivity there. So when we look at that sidewalk and the crossways and how we link everything together on all the trails that we have through the city, it certainly will be an item that we will discuss through all of the departments within the city to be able to have a cohesive design.
To the chair, Ms. Barnes and Councillor Baldwin just put this, you mean storyboards like they have down at Millennium Park or over here at Confederation Park, telling a story, the history of Peterborough. And I think we need to embrace that. And there is a storied history in this area alone. It was a destination spot for a lot of people back at the turn of the century and certainly in the 20s. It was one of the spots to go and swim at one time. So it has a lot of history in the area.
Okay, thank you through the chair. Yes, that's certainly something we look at. We're currently undertaking a similar approach on the Morrow Park down at the New Miskin Law Community Complex. We're doing a similar thing there along that trail, looking at the history of that site, identifying all the different uses and using plaques along that walkway to celebrate those things. So it's definitely a part of every project that we look at. So thank you for bringing that forward to me, because I'll definitely make a note and we'll make sure that it's within the interest.
Thank you, Councillor Reel. Speaking to the motion, Councillor Burke.
Yeah, just through the chair to follow up on the last speaker, I think that I live close to the area, and through COVID, I joked that the trail on at Jackson Park was busier than George Street, with so many people on it. And there's a definitely like a natural rhythm to the park and to the walkway and to the places how people cut through from the very sites that you mentioned, the activity center across McDonald Street through Bonnerworth and then to Hamilton Park. But there's no sense of that from the planning, like nothing. In fact, the planning so far has been obtrusive to those natural ways that people use and go through the space. So I would just like to sort of echo what my council colleague said and to look at this through an optimistic lens and to say that this could be a really great opportunity to sort of take a bird's eye view of the area and figure it out, you know. And the Peterborough Housing Corp building, which was the old woolen mill, it does have a good sense of history in there. There is a board there, and there's an old lamp post, and there's a picture of the building about how it used to be. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Burke. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, that the 2025 funding portion, which is approximately 2.39 mil of phase 2 of the Bonnerworth Park project, be pre-committed. Moved by Councillor Purnell. We'll take a vote. And that is carried. Councillor Purnell, did you want to make a second motion?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to add a second motion that the pedestrian infrastructure associated with the Bonnerworth Park redevelopment project include for McDonald Street and Bonnecourt Street be a priority project in 2025.
All right, moved by Councillor Purnell. Comments to that? Councillor Baldwin?
Wondering, Mr. Chair, you know, it's a motion that none of us were aware of until now. My personal preference here with respect to this is to have it referenced, have this particular motion deferred until we can get some input from professional staff. I'm not an expert on crosswalks or anything else, but I think that our transportation staff, Mr. Mallon and company, should have a look at this prior to us pre-committing for 2025. So I'm not going to support the motion based on that at this time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Baldwin. Councillor Reel to the motion.
Through the chair, I think I can just build on Councillor Baldwin. I have no intentions of pre-committing. If you go into the book here, already pre-committed for 2025, it's $34 million. That's before we even start. So I would like some information before I will support this here. I'm not opposed to what the intent of the motion, but I'm not pre-committing anything for 25. I'm just trying to get through this budget. And I'm telling you, you go to the page, you will read $34 million is always pre-committed for next year already. So.
Thank you, Councillor Reel. Any further comments or questions? Councillor Purnell?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My motion doesn't say pre-commit the fund. I expect that this would come back with our 2025 budget, but it gives staff direction that they can do the overall design of the park and the necessary infrastructure, pedestrian infrastructure to support the park. When we create a regional park like this, according to our own policies for active transportation and the sidewalk policy, our climate change, all of those things, you have to make sure it's safe for people to get to this regional park. So it makes a lot of sense to do the overall planning at the same time, and we can approve. We'll get the number in the next budget before it actually happens, but staff can at least get the design phase done, start the public consultation for sidewalks. That is part of our policy, and I think it's important because bottom line, we have to do it. You have to have safe pedestrian infrastructure around such a significant regional park within our community. So that's the bottom line, sir, and I do hope that it passes so we can be efficient.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Purnell. I have Councillor LaChica and Baldwin. Councillor LaChica?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Just appreciated that Ms. Barnes did share with us that this is an inevitable priority. And just to speak as a town ward councillor, I know that Councillor Burke and I receive regular communications from the community on Bon Accord, expressing, yes, that lots of change is happening. And I think one of the things that is front of mind for that community is the safety issue. So we address several emails and phone calls around that on a regular basis. So I think that an additional thought to make this a priority and be front of mind is positive and responsive to the community's needs for safety. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Latiga. Commissioner Freeman?
Mr. Chairman, I just wondered if, and I'm going to kind of look at Mr. Papadakis here. Is it possible that the motion could just be put on hold and revisited tomorrow night? We're going to have the infrastructure staff here, give staff a day to just take it away, consider it. We could give perhaps an order of magnitude of dollars that we're talking about, and then perhaps the councillor could retable the motion at that point in time, or we take it away and kind of do the consultation and then report back. I'm just thinking if we just had a bit more time, got talking to the right staff. Mr. Papadakis, are you okay with that sort of thing?
Commissioner Papadakis? Oh, yes, sorry.
Yes.
That's, gotcha.
Gave us the heads up. Do I still have the floor?
No. Actually, it's Councillor Baldwin and then Councillor Purnell. Councillor Baldwin?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I would appreciate hearing from staff, and I think that's an excellent suggestion. I do point out that in our ward, we had a really great project at Rogers Cove, and there's no crosswalk for safety on Mariah Street, which is an extremely busy street. So certainly Ms. Barnes has heard the message. I think already in her pre-planning, she knows we've got to get people safely to and from that particular part. But I'll wait to hear from staff tomorrow night. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Baldwin. Councillor Purnell?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To the previous councillor's point, the idea of the crosswalk from Bonneworth Park to the Lawn Bowling Club, our new McDonald Street Activity Center, is because McDonald Street Activity Center is going to be a service area for people using Bonneworth Park. So there'll be quite a bit of traffic back and forth there. But I do appreciate the suggestion. I will accept the suggestion that I will bring it back up tomorrow night. And then, because honestly, this was news. I had that information before tonight. That wasn't a consideration, so it wasn't off the cuff out of the discussion. So yes, I would like to. I'll bring it back up tomorrow night, and that gives staff a chance to look at it, maybe give us an idea of cost. But bottom line, for safety and accessibility, we got to do it. So thank you. I'll withdraw until tomorrow night.
So thank you, and it's been withdrawn, Councillor Duguay, so we'll have to no longer on the floor to discuss. Having said that, we're moving on to page 45, where I have Councillor Duguay and Councillor Reel. So Councillor Duguay.
Thank you, Chair Beamer. Just as a note then, with respect to the previous discussion, it strikes me from as we're contemplating new parks, that part of it will, I believe in many instances, have to include not sidewalk and pedestrian crosswalks, because we quite often have parks that are mid-block and people likely are coming from the opposite side of the road. So and to your point, Councillor Baldwin, I agree, Rogers Code should have had a crosswalk lesson learned. It should have, and we could include that in our ongoing basis. On page 45 in general, Mr. Chairman, we have several projects including washrooms. And we've even seen, for example, on Wolf Street, an example of a new approach to fully accessible washrooms, very durable washrooms. And I think to Councillor Real's point as well, we should be considering alternatives from a cost perspective. But I'd like to ask staff, associated with some of these projects, some which have started, some are new. And I know later on in the budget, we have a policy or discussion around a procurement policy. Do we have, Commissioner Freeman, do we have in place today a list of pre-qualified landscape architects, civil engineers, mechanical engineers for projects of this type? And I'm referring to, for example, if we were to do a new washroom building or park washroom replacement building, because there are costs. They might be pre-committed, or other buildings, but do we have a list of pre-qualified professionals that we can circulate tenders for work associated with these projects.
Mr. McGilvery?
Through the chair, currently we have two consulting firms of records, which consist of an architect, structural engineer, mechanical engineer, and electrical engineer. They're in place for the next 4 years, 3 years. We have a new roofing and building envelope consultant that was just approved again for another 5 + 5 years. And we have a commissioning firm of record for all of our control systems, lighting systems that we put in new buildings. And we also have an environmental consultant of record. So we can carte blanche to those people. They know exactly how we work, how we do our operations, and what our procurement policy is.
Excuse me, if I might, Mr. Chairman, when was that pre-qualification undertaken and approved?
They're all at various stages. So the architects was done about 7 years ago, which was a 5 + 5 contract. Commissioning firm was done 3 years ago. The environmental consultant was done last year. The building envelope was done this year. And I'll defer to Jillian, Ms. Barnes, on landscaping and things under her purview.
Through the chair, so we have this year pre-qualified landscape architects, 3 of them, which is a 3-year term. And we also pre-qualified a general contractor for landscaping as well this year as we started rolling out the park projects. With our much larger projects that we bring on, we do go out for an RFP specifically for design for much larger projects.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Duguay. Speaking on page 45, I have Councillor Reel and then Hakey. Councillor Reel, oh, you okay? Good to go. I have Councillor Hakey and then Baldwin. Councillor Hakey, 45.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and through you to Michael. Not belaboring the point, but the portable washrooms that Councillor Riel was referring to, have we as a city looked at those before and have determined that they're good or not good or ruled them in or out?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I might ask Jillian to chime in to address that question. Thank you.
Thank you. Through the chair, yes, I have the responsibility for all the city washroom buildings. So I do recall that we have had this discussion with regard to modular washrooms previously. I don't know if you recollect, down at Rogers Cove, we had a modular prefabricated washroom there, which was in pretty dire straits when we removed it, and opted at that time to create Rogers Cove washroom building instead for better longevity. I do believe that now prefabricated building has come a long way. It's definitely moved on. We've seen that at the new washroom that we have at Wolf Street. So we're not opposed to looking at that. I did want to just make a clarification that the washroom building that you speak to, Councillor Rial, is 750,000 in the budget document, not 2 million. And that is specifically for the location at Jackson Park. And we are cognizant that that particular location is a heritage location. And so we are looking to put a building in there that fits within that park and necessarily would not be a modular building. But in the future, we're not opposed to the modular building. We're certainly looking at them. They're improving all the time. So always interested. So I think I would take that brochure from you, if you wouldn't mind. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hakey. Councillor Baldwin?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Through to Ms. Burns. Wading pools. We still have a couple, I understand. When will they be totally decommissioned?
So through the chair, the intent is the 2025 budget and the 2026 budget for the 2 remaining wading pools.
So through the chair, if we're doing the Knights of Columbus one, that wading pool will come out and it'll be replaced by some kind of a water feature.
That is correct. And then it would be the Chelsea Gardens one.
And through the chair, I noticed later in the budget book, there's a section there for $89,000 with respect to, do we continue with lifeguarding? And my understanding is, Ms. Burns, that we and maybe this, I'll go through to maybe Sheldon. If we have a wading pool, we have lifeguards present. Is that still present practice?
That is correct. Through the chair, that's correct, yes.
Okay. So just, thinking forward, there may not be the full savings of potentially removing the lifeguarding, $89,000, but certainly when the wading pools are gone, we wouldn't need lifeguards there. And then I guess at that point in time, council would have to make a decision. Do we want to have lifeguards at Rogers Cove? So that's kind of a question and a comment, Mr. Chair, because I know we are looking at that later in the budget, and I believe it's an $89,000 figure. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Baldwin. Michigan Law Community Center, 46. 46. Parks and Open Space Parks and Open Space, 47. Riverside Park and East Side Bowl, 48. Facilities Planning Initiatives, Other Capital Budget, 49. Councillor Duguay, 49.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is the page that I spoke to earlier. Arising from discussions with the Accessibility Advisory Committee, there was a discussion of a request to council to consider increasing the 25,000 to 50,000 a year. I do recall discussing it previously in principle here. I think it's perhaps even in August. This is a small amount of money, but it's important. The cost, as Ms. Barnes and Mr. McGillivray just to put in one or like two of Power Assist doors, we can eat up $25,000 very quickly. And I'm hoping that small increase can be accommodated during the budget process on behalf of the Access Advisory Committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Duguay. Councillor Purnell.
Thank you. I will actually support that because it would be part of our overall accessibility budget anyway. This money that goes to our Accessibility Advisory Committee, they just have the power to look at all of the projects that the city does. So they have the best knowledge of our accessibility projects and they can recommend what features are needed. So it's a part of the accessibility budget anyway. It just lets them recommend additional projects because they're our initial experts on these projects. So I'll support that.
Thank you, Councillor Purnell. So Councillor Duguay, just to be clear, was a motion made? You're making a motion to increase the improvement fund from 25 to 50?
Mr. Chairman, it would strike me that it warrants a motion and I'd be pleased to do so at this time if it's appropriate.
Okay, and the extra 25,000, is there a spot where it'll come from or? Mr. Commissioner Freeman?
Mr. Chairman, if it's okay with the councillor, given the amount, I would suggest that a transfer from the capital levy reserve and of $25,000 to make it 50.
Okay, so we'll wordsmith that. So $25,000 from the capital levy reserve to accessibility improvement. Speakers to that motion in front of us. Councillor Hakey?
I was afraid we get into below the line stuff, but this is something that I do think is warranted, and certainly with Councillor Duguay's credentials, he's certainly has the knowledge to support this money as far as I'm concerned. So it's something that I do support, but don't get used to it.
Councillor Burke?
Yeah, through the chair, can staff speak to the extent of the window repairs at the King Street garage for 410,000?
So maybe we'll just finish up with this motion.
Oh, sorry. I thought we were done.
Yeah, no, we'll take a vote and then I'll come right to you. So seeing no further, that the annual budget for accessibility improvements be increased by 25,000 from 25 to 50 from the capital reserves. Okay. Capital levy reserves. Sorry, Mr. Freeman. Yep. All right, moved by Councillor Duguay. We'll take a vote. And that is carried. All right, Councillor Burke.
Yeah, thanks, Chair Beamer. My question was just about the extent of the window repairs at the King Street garage for staff, please.
Mr. McGilvery?
Sorry, I'm on page, I don't know if I'm on the right page. I'm on page 52.
Oh, you're ahead of us.
Oh.
You're doing a great job. Fantastic.
Sorry.
But that's fine. Mr. McGilvery, you,
I'll wait.
no, we're all,
Okay.
well, all right. Mr. McGilvery, the windows?
Through the chair. The project mainly is replacement of spalling brick on the exterior of the building. The window replacement is on the upper stairwells at the top level of the garage.
Just to council, through the chair, would this be a time in, based on our reports that we've had through council actually quite recently that are looking at parking, we have a downtown parking strategy or central area coming, like, would this be something that we could defer? I guess I'll ask through the chair to Mac, would this be something that we could defer until that other strategy comes in? And I'm just thinking ahead, future ready. What if we dump 410,000 into bricks and windows and stuff, but then this year we decide that we would need to raise that parking garage or something? These are the conversations we're having. So is this a time to look at maybe just deferring that 410,000? Mac?
Mr. McGilvery?
Through the chair, I would say I would not recommend deferring the brickwork. If you want to defer the windows on the stairwells, I would say fine, but the brickwork itself right now is a health and safety hazard, which are dropping around on the pedestrian sidewalks that lead into the garage. And it would not affect any future work. It would only add that we're doing the work now, which would be done cheaper if you added levels to the garage.
So through the chair to Mr. McGilvery, is there any sense of what that portion of the project would cost?
I would ask council not to defer any money, not knowing what the actual cost will be when you put that out for tender, but there's an awful lot of brick and it's going to get worse over the winter time by the time you tender it out next spring.
Sorry, just to rephrase through the chair, what I was asking was, do you have a sense of how much just to repair the brick would cost the city of Peterborough, as opposed to doing the brick and the windows, please?
Through the chair, I would say the major portion of the project would be about $375,000 for the brickwork itself, if not more, by the time we get to it next spring.
All right. I mean, I guess it's so through Chair Beamer to Commissioner Papadakos, as we're looking at these planning changes, we have a central area planning change permit system coming into effect. We're looking at parking for the downtown. Do you have any advice on this sort of spending when we could potentially be looking at something different there?
Through you, Mr. Chair, based on Mr. McGilvery's comments that the spalling brick seems to be a health and safety hazard, my recommendation would be that we move forward with addressing that health and safety hazard, notwithstanding the fact that we may have to be looking at other capital investments or changes. Those changes are still we're still in the planning phase and we're not yet into conceptual. So I wouldn't be able to confirm for council a timeline on which we'd be undertaking a major capital upgrade to that facility at this time. And just based on Mr. McGilvery's assessment of it being a health and safety issue, I would suggest we move forward with the repairs now. And hopefully it's not well, it will be a good investment now, and we can work around it in the future.
Thanks through the chair. Like, these are the types of things that I'm seeing, right? We're getting $500,000 to death to get this 10%. And like, we've heard earlier this year that the parking garages are at 20 to 30% capacity, right? Like, is there a solution to be found here with this? Can we block off the one staircase where the brick is and use the other one? Like, I don't know, I'm reaching here. Through the chair to Mr. McGilvery, is there anything you can do to like save us some money? No, CAO Reyna's shaking his head. No, not worth it.
CAO Reyna?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I've been to the site and that's a major health and safety issue. So I will not recommend it. It's better to do it because even if you put the stairwell, you want to block it, one brick fall and it hits somebody and we are done. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Burke. Speaking on that, I believe Mayor Leo.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. This a parking garage, I remember the debate very well. We built about 1997. So this is probably the first time in 26 years that we've done any substantive work to this parking garage. It was a design build by Ross Smith and Aon. And I think it's stood up extremely well. And Mac, I would look at this stuff here. It's just its normal life expectancy. It's been a pretty cost efficient garage over the last 26 years. And at some stage, some work needs to be done to extend its life. And this is just a product of getting to a parking garage that's almost 3 decades old.
Through the chair, yes, Mayor Leal is correct. It is ongoing maintenance that needs to be done. Brickwork on the outside of a parking garage or on the outside of any structure. Over time, it does fall. It gets water in the cracks. So that's just what we're doing, along with the elevators that are being replaced this spring.
Thank you. Councillor Burke on the same issue or, okay.
Yeah, thanks. And then also in the parking garage conversation that we're having, didn't we just do the Simcoe Street parking garage? And we're now looking at $85,000 for a roof and 3 stairwells?
Through the chair, that is correct. Last year and the year prior to that, we did the Jackson Creek culvert rehabilitation and the structural work to the parking garage itself. Doing the roofing work on top of the stairwells, totally different contractor, totally different contract.
Thank you, Councillor Burke. All right, so we'll just go back to page 50. Councillor Reel. Yep.
I got so enthused about the mobile orderless antibacterial washrooms that I had a question on page 45 from Mr. Freeman. And that has to do with the community center, the Miskin Law arena that we're building. Could you explain to me why we didn't debenture that over a longer period of time? Because we're pre-committed for $24 million in 2024. Am I missing something here? Because it says that it's approved in 2024 for that money. So did we not debenture that over a longer period of time? Then maybe I'm missing something here from that page.
Mr. Chairman, what is being shown on this page is the actual capital construction. The councillor is correct. We did debenture the funds, and we will borrow the monies, and the term of the debt is 30 years for that facility.
Thank you, Councillor Reel. So, Councillor Duguay.
Thank you, Chair Beamer. I'm staying on page 50.
Okay.
Thank you.
We're making progress. Right, okay.
We are. We're only have another 720 pages to go. We're getting there.
Making good time.
I'd like to speak to 2 properties that were under city ownership. Firstly, I'd like to speak to 249 Simcoe Street. That is a 2-story commercial complex located adjacent to our recently renovated public library, I believe. So my take on, we acquired that building and we needed a portion of that in an adjacent property. I think it might have been a law office for some site parking associated with the library. Left, then the remnant piece, the orphan, is this building. Would this building not be, if it's not necessary for city operations, because I don't believe we're using it, unless I'm mistaken, but could this not be an asset we could consider selling?
Through the chair, the current lower floor of the building is being used by community services staff. The upper 3 rental units are being rented out at fair market rent.
Can the community service staff be relocated to, for example, McDonald Street Community Center, Navy Club, or even within City Hall?
Through the chair, I would have to defer that to Commissioner Sheldon.
If I could, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to know have an answer. Thank you.
Yeah. If I could, Chair Beamer, just to try to answer that question, we have moved staff, recreation that were partially working from home and sharing other offices. They've moved to the McDonald Street Activity Center. So we have maximized the office space in that facility. And
the Simcoe Street property has arts and culture staff as well as heritage staff, and we have looked into whether they can move to City Hall. And at this point in time, there just isn't office space to do so at this point in time, but we have reviewed that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think this is a property, should the opportunity arise and it's surplus to our needs, it would be, I think we'd be well served by disposing of it. Secondly, the Harvey's property. When will, what is the status of our current lease arrangement with the operator?
Mr. Potts?
The lease for that particular property runs until December 5th, 2025, with another 5-year extension until December 30th, December 2030, unless termination by the city for municipal purposes. Thank you.
So if I might, Mr. Chairman, with respect to a fast food serving restaurant with a drive-through facility located right at the gateway of Millennium Park, it is what it is. It's a bit awkward. I'm hoping that perhaps not now, but in forthcoming council meetings, we can consider a better, more appropriate waterfront use of that property. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Duguay. Councillor Baldwin?
Mr. Chair, I apologize to go back to
Okay.
48. I see Mr. Elliott in the audience tonight. I know he's been waiting patiently for someone to ask a question. So, got through the chair, we've got the Miscon Law Community Complex sponsorship that you're responsible for. Thank you very much for bringing that to council. I'm wondering, with all of the recreational opportunities and refits, Bonnerworth Park, Knights of Columbus, Quaker Park, Morrow Park, Eastgate, Bonnerworth, Knights of Columbus, as we refigure those, redevelop those, or in fact improve, do you see any sponsorship opportunities? I know a few people in the community have been reaching out about the tax rate and the revenue possibilities. I'm just going to ask you that because you're here. Thank you.
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. Thanks for the question. Certainly, there's always opportunities for more sponsorship in the community. To be able to give you a number or to be able to say for sure that a business is going to want to take on that opportunity at this point would be very difficult for me at this time. But certainly, that's what the sponsorship staff are here for, and we'd be happy to look for sponsorship opportunities with any of those new developments.
Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Baldwin. Thank you very much, Mr. Elliott. All right, back to 50, facilities management operating budget, 50. Capital budget, 51. Councillor Burke, 51.
Can I go back to the what Councillor Baldwin was talking
Sure,
about?
sure.
I have this is a question through the chair, off guard to Commissioner Papadakos. But do you think that given these discussions about these parks, Bonnerworth, Riverside, is there equally, as Councillor Baldwin was pointing out, the opportunity for sponsorship, is there equally an opportunity to activate the Heritage Office, which is now under planning, to take advantage of, federal grants, to really activate these spaces through the heritage lens?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I would see that as staff embark upon any project that is going to look at a rejuvenation of some sorts. We usually do a pretty good job of ensuring we're consulting with different departments, divisions, and subject matter experts within the municipality. And I would expect that assets such as the East City Bowl and others that have a heritage component, our folks from our heritage office would be pulled into those discussions to chime in.
Thank you very much. All right, 51. Legislative Services Department, 52. Councillor Duguay.
Thank you, Chair Beamer. A quick question, if I might, to staff. Paragraph 4 speaks to the Northeast Building office renovations of $200,000. Which building is that exactly?
Through the chair, that is the new building that is out back of City Hall that replaced the original garage building that was there.
Thank you. And then supplementary, this is predicated upon the need to accommodate staffing. So is that to accommodate existing or the increased staffing that is contemplated through page 6? Some of those staff on page 6 of our budget books.
Through the chair, it is to accommodate existing staff and proposed new staff.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, may I continue? I have another query on page 52 under Community Services Department. Art gallery roof replacement. I recall, and I may stand to be corrected, during a previous presentation from the art gallery in some time ago that they indicated that they might be embarking on a study to consider an alternative location. Is the roof in such a condition that it needs to be repaired or can be deferred in the event the art gallery is successful in finding for themselves a new home?
Through the chair, I would say the roof is at the end of its current lifespan. And being that it is an art gallery and the roof that was done 13 years ago has reached the premature end of its life over top of the vault, it needs to be done immediately.
Thank you. That was the clarification I was seeking.
Thank you very much, Councillor Duguay. 53, Councillor LaChica.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. This is just going back one page to 52. Under the Community Services Department, Beavermead Campground and Nichols Oval Pavilion. Just a question about the Nichols Oval Pavilion and the roof repair. This is a question through you, Mr. Chair, to Commissioner Laidman, actually. From reading through the book and looking at the increase in the community services grant to the Peterborough Folk Festival, was it in reference to the Nichols Oval Pavilion that there was that sizable proportion granted to the Folk Festival? Was it that repair? Thank you.
Chair Beamer to Councillor Chica. Actually, that was in response to where they hold their folk festival in the bowl area where the old stage building was that included some storage. That was the building that was removed and demolished this year. That's where they held their festival activities on that stage. So that is what's being replaced for them on a temporary measure. We're upping the grant by, I believe, $10,000 or $5,000 to allow them to rent a stage for this upcoming year.
Thank you, Commissioner Laidman. I guess my question is the precedent around an infrastructure issue just coming out of a granting budget. I wouldn't ordinarily think that would happen because our recreation infrastructure and parks, it wouldn't just be the folk festival that would be impacted by that disrepair, that item. So I guess I'm just thinking ahead and what pots things are coming out from. It would seem to be an infrastructure piece, would it not? Mr. Laidman, you must have thought that through. Thank you.
Yeah, through you, Chair Beamer. Staff did definitely think that through. I think the savings the city realized by being able to remove that structure and have the ongoing costs of that structure, which were significant, the constant break-ins and having to be able to service that building. The only use of that building was a once a year festival over a weekend. There wasn't any other ongoing usage of that building, unlike the pavilion that you're seeing in the budget, which is literally used every day of the year, of the summer and the fall and the spring. So it was meant as a significant savings to the city to be able to tear down that structure, and it was seen as at least a 1-year offset for that festival to be able to absorb that extra cost so that they can then absorb that cost going forward on their own. But at least to recognize on a 1-year basis that there was an initial cost to them that needed to be recognized.
Thanks for that clarification. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Councillor Chica. So 53, Councillor Duguay.
Mr. Chairman, I apologize. I'd like to return, if I could, to 52 for one moment. I was just consulting my own notes. I'd like to move that we defer the office renovations for what I refer to as the annex building. I think we need to await to see the full consequence and of work from home, flexible hours in City Hall, and whether or not it is absolutely necessary to carry out $200,000 repairing the annex building. So I would move that we would defer that item and to allow, there's things like Service Peterborough and other initiatives to unfold. Let's allow that to unfold, park this renovation for now. This is not a roof repair because the building does, the building's not under, its integrity, structural integrity is not at risk. We are shifting space internally to accommodate staff. And I would prefer to wait until we realize the full consequences of a return from work from home and our flexible work programs as well as Service Peterborough. Thank you.
Okay, so a deferral always in order. So speaking to the defer of a $200,000 for the office renovations for the northeast building. Mr. Freeman, did you want to make some comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for indulging me. Mr. Chairman, the CAO, Mr. Reyna, when he did his organizational review and his scan of the organization, and he shifted certain staff from one department to another, he did assign additional staff to this work group. We do not have the physical space right now in that facility to accommodate the changes that were requested to be made. We very much would like to have staff present and have a work area in the facility as part of ensuring that we are efficient, that they are doing what they're tasked to do, and ensuring that the work plan is being accomplished. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mr. McGilvery?
Just to add to Mr. Freeman, it is a change in use for existing staff that cannot be accommodated presently. What we are trying to do during this renovation is to also incorporate future staff, some that are in this year's budget as well. So it's not just to accommodate future needs, it's to accommodate present needs.
Thank you. All right, any comments or questions on the deferral?
Mr. Chairman, I'm still wishing to have the motion proceed, notwithstanding the information from staff.
Okay, moved by Councillor Duguay. That the City Hall Northcrest building office renovation on page 52 is deferred until further information. Okay. Councillor Baldwin?
Just, Mr. Chair, I'm wondering if the councillor has any idea in terms of timeline with respect to the deferral. Are we planning on having it come back to us, in first part of 2024 or 3 months from now? Or that would be helpful in terms of me making a decision right now.
Mr. Chairman, if I may elaborate, it's the absence of detail in this case, not unlike my colleague Councillor Burke seeking certain details. I'd like to fully understand what staff, and I'm not doubting the corporate realignments, but I think I really need to get my mind around what staff and understand that, and then perhaps a report coming back in maybe the early part of Q2, just to understand, and then we can make an informed. I'm prepared to wait this out and let's see what happens. Thank you.
I guess a supplementary then, Mr. Chair, back to staff with respect to a Q2 deferral. If the project still needs to go forward and the realignment needs to go forward now, what does that do in terms of the reorganization? And if those changes are already in effect, what's happening with respect to the organization? I guess that probably goes to Mr. Reyna more than anybody else, but I'm just concerned about, we've heard from staff saying we've got additional staff, we've got staff who are already here, they have no place to work. sounds to me from Mr. Freeman's answer, Mr. Chair, they're wanting that group to work cohesively together on site, not from home. And, you know, if it's approved in Q2, all of a sudden, and you've got to look at contractors, how long will it take to do the renovation, those kinds of things. That's my concern with the deferral. So.
CAO Reyna, then Mr. McGilvery.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to say that respectfully, we will follow the will of the council, but I just want these things to be considered, and that currently, when I hired a advisor government relation, we didn't have the space where to put this staff member, because again, I don't want to go in the past. We never invested and we never had a dedicated space, staff growth and space management plan here. It was just on the run, like this space is empty, so put the people there. So when I did whole inventory check there, we are extremely low. I currently, if I hire a commissioner for municipal operations, which I will eventually, currently I don't have a space where to put that individual. So that's the scenario we're dealing with, because we never invested in getting new buildings, and where the other municipalities, they do invest it, they have a 10 to 20 year staff growth plan. So currently we're just relying purely on people working from home. Oh, this person is working from home, most likely he won't come for the next 2 months, so assign this room. So that's the reality. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Baldwin. Councillor Reel.
Through the chair, I mean, Councillor Duguay brings up a good point. I mean, we're still here as councillors. What does the complement of the city? How many people are still working from home? I can walk down an alleyway here, and there's several offices that are vacant, nothing in it, a bunch of garbage. So what's the need analysis for City Hall here? You're saying you want to restack the deck chairs in the building that we have out here because you want to consolidate and put all those people in here. But again, here we are at a loss of what the plan is for City Hall. What does the CEO envision for the city of Peterborough? He says here he wants to bring, you know, I've made all these changes. I want to bring the people together. How many people are working from home? What is the plan? Because I don't know what the plan is. So I think I'll be supporting the deferral because I don't know what the plan is. I don't know how many office spaces here are vacant that could be used, or if all of them, we're going to renovate them. Because like I said, I can walk down the hallway right here. There's 3 or 4 offices. They're empty with a bunch of garbage in it. There could be office space for people here. Then you want to redo a building for X amount of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars, to consolidate a business. I just want to know what the needs assessment is for the business. How many people are working from home? Is the plan to bring these people back into City Hall or have a hybrid model? I have no idea.
Thank you, Councillor Reel. CAO Reyna.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I think I have many times I have said that going forward, we have no intention of bringing everybody in the City Hall. And there will be a hybrid model, because that's how the things are moving. And that's one of the talent attraction strategy we're looking for, because I have explained it many times that when we are going for the hiring interviews, the people first question they ask, is there any hybrid model? So going back to your second question about the plan, definitely I have not gone to that level in digging where is the staff seating plan, but if that's the intention of the council, we can definitely bring it back and give you all the details. Thank you.
All right, Mr. McGilvery, I skipped you. I apologize. Did you want to?
Just to add to the comments, there is enough space in our building for current staff. There is one staff member currently that would need to come out of the main City Hall that has a direct report to Ms. Barnes, and another position, a senior project coordinator position, that is a contract position that the person would need a place to sit, again, also under Ms. Barnes. So without doing any type of renovations, there is no place for those people to sit. We do have a hybrid model where we're in the office, we're out of the office, but we do need a place to come and work when we are here. We meet with contractors, we meet with staff. So at this present time, there is not enough space in our building to accommodate current staff and new staff.
Thank you very much. Councillor Burke.
Yeah, I mean, I think respectfully, I just I echo the conversation. And this doesn't feel like the stacking of the lawn chairs in the building that used to be the garage or whatever it was, doesn't feel like a 2050 plan. It feels like an incremental plan. And that's fine. But the thing is it's costing a couple $100,000 in the interim, right? And this is like, if I were to have to take, I couldn't pass a lie detector test and tell the truth that I have any idea what we're talking about right now. I don't even know what building you guys are talking about. I have no clue what you're talking about. And then yet we're being asked to spend the residential tax base's money on this plan that I don't know what's going on. What is the plan? Is this part of it? Like, we've heard that we need places for people to sit. We've heard that we need places to support a hybrid model. But you know, when the counselor that spoke previously was talking about there are rooms that are empty, what I would support would be a clear presentation of a plan. A clear presentation of a plan. This is our strategy. These are the new commissioners that we want. These are the inefficiencies of the building. This is the little kitchenette room that never gets used. This is the little room with the old laptops and the phone and the dial tone phones that doesn't get used. And here's our overall 2050 plan to change things, to bring it up to whatever the vision is. But I'm not getting that. In fact, I don't know what anyone's talking about. Are we developing a room here for people to sit, another office? I walk by the government relations person and they have an office down there. So what's the problem?
Through Mr. Chair, so we don't go to that nitty-gritty of that, but if council is interested in going to the level of stool, tables, chairs, desks, definitely we will do that.
Mr. Freeman, and then I have Councilor Burke. Mr. Freeman?
Mr. Chairman, if I could just provide perhaps just a little bit of clarity. So the facility that we're talking about is the building that sits in the northeast parking lot of City Hall. That's why we call it the Northeast Building. It's not really original, but that's why it's termed that. And there are a number of staff that work out of that facility now. And yes, most of those staff work a hybrid arrangement whereby a lot of their job is out of that building, working with meeting contractors because they're all project management staff. So they are in and out of the facility all the time. However, when they are in the office, they need a spot to call home because it is important that they have a presence there. To give a bit additional detail to the councillor, to Councillor DeGay, the individual that we're referring to is the accessibility staff. So Mr. Reyna, in his organizational changes, assigned accessibility staff to the facilities group for lots of good reasons. There's no place for the accessibility staff to sit in that building. But it's important that they have a presence there because we want to get a handle on what they're doing for accessibility, and we want to get the program on the road in terms of accessibility. That's probably a bad analogy. So, but we actually want to make sure that they are carrying out accessibility on behalf of the city of Peterborough in an organized way that accomplishes the goals that we as a corporation set out from an accessibility perspective. That's the staff that we're referring to. That's one of the staff. The second one that Mr. McGilver referred to was additional senior project oversight, working specifically on a $65 million arena and a $12 million fire station number 2. Miss Barnes is drowning. She won't tell you that. I'll tell you that. She's drowning. I got to help her out. That's the second staff that Mac referred to on her behalf. She won't tell you that. So we're trying to get her some assistance here. There's no place for that individual to sit out there in its current form. So it is important. We hear this back and forth from council all the time. How many staff are working remotely? How many staff are in the office? The last time, councillor, I checked, and it was with People and Culture, it was Miss McFarlane. I don't see her back there. I'd be referring to her. It was 90-some%. When I looked at all the staff across the corporation, if I zone in on, because the comments are about City Hall often, if I zone in on City Hall, the last time we checked, it was 80-some% of City Hall. You have to keep in mind that many of the technical staff at City Hall are in the office first thing in the morning. They grab their work, they're out on the road, they're doing whatever, they're in and out because that is their job. You cannot drive by City Hall at 500 George Street North, look at the parking lot and assess who's in, who's out. It doesn't work that way. They are doing their job out on the road. Sorry, I'm just getting a little amped up here. Just apologize, Mr. Chairman. But anyway, we're trying to work efficiently and move the corporation forward. We're trying to bring intentionality to what people are doing and making sure that they're doing their job, and actually having them in the office, building a team, ensuring what they're doing is the way to do it. A big part of how to do it. My apologies, Mr. Chairman, for going on a rant there.
No rant, no apologies needed. Good info.
So
So I have Councillor Burke, Crowley, and Duguay. Councillor Burke.
Well,
Yep, Councillor Burke, you have the floor.
yeah, I mean, I think that was a lovely pitch, but I don't know if I'm filled with any more confidence as to what the project is. And it's not about anyone battling the intentions. It's just about us being actually in this chair tonight, having to look through this book and having to disseminate and talk about some of these costs that we see, right? And it's like how you do one thing is how you do everything, right? And we're flipping 200 grand to create some more office space. And none of us really, I don't really have a sense of what that looks like, the office space, the actual $200,000 renovation. Like, and so this is just an example where it's been brought up that we could defer this until all of council has a better sense of what the overall strategy is. The theme tonight is that there's a lot of things happening that we don't really necessarily understand what the outcome is going to be long term. And this is maybe one of those areas that we could just defer this and give staff time to come back to us and say, this is what we're going to do specifically. And it's for this staff member, and it's going to be in this room, and it's going to divide this room in half. And hey, we're doing Service Peterborough. And by the way, we took your input and our need to have more office space. And here's how we're maximizing that predetermined $660,000, right? We're being flexible with it, just like every other person in this city is trying to be flexible with their budgets, right? And we want the bird's eye view on things tonight. We want the bird's eye view on things tonight. And our job is to go through and say, do we really need to spend this 200 grand right now? Or is there some creative way that we can do it? Are we overlapping somewhere? Is there a room with old rotary dial tone phones and laptops from Kemi Akapo still that we could actually use for an office? That's what we're saying. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Burke. I have Councillor Crowley and Duguay. Councillor Crowley?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No, I understand completely what Commissioner Freeman's saying. I mean, it makes absolute sense that we need everybody on site working together and working as a cohesive unit. But I think that right now, similar to what Councillor Burke is saying, I mean, we need to do what we can. There's probably a lot of people in Peterborough who are right now saying, oh my God, 9.59. It's great that you don't have an office and you need an office, but I don't have a job now because I can't afford this and I can't afford that. And I don't know where I'm going to get my rent. I understand all that. So maybe it's just me coming from an IT background with having multiple offices around North America and being able to manage teams remotely. Maybe I have a little, I mean, I don't want to say I have less sympathy. I do understand having a team in office working as a unit all at once. I just think that it's extraordinary circumstances. This is an extraordinary economic time that we find ourselves in. And if we can at all help the taxpayer by shaving off $200,000, deferring that for 1 year and having people work remotely, I know that sounds awful to the people that are listening to this in this room, but maybe that would sort of just help things in the meantime. So I would actually support the deferral. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Crowley. I have Councillor Duguay and then LaChica. Councillor Duguay.
Thank you, Chair Beamer. This might be one particular item within our extensive budget book that might have benefited from a bit more direction and detail. Having listened to the impassioned remarks from staff, the space still seems to be predicated upon council agreeing with staff hires. And we haven't yet done all that. So some of it is to accommodate new staff. I still would wish my motion to proceed. I think this is an item that the building's not falling apart. There is perhaps still some opportunity in City Hall to accommodate and make better utilization of our existing workspaces for the time being. And this could be a matter we could appropriate. Well, I said maybe the report, but I'm not even sure if that timing's right. But I still would like my motion to stand. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Duguay. Councillor LaChica, speaking to the motion in front of us.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I am going to just cast a different perspective on this than what's being discussed. I don't believe a deferral is actually a helpful maneuver at this point. I think that we've listened to our CAO and we've listened to Mr. McGilvery, who's informed us that we are short for our current staffing situation in terms of office space. This city staff, we work remotely as counselors, and we managed to do that. I think sometimes we wish we were all together in the same building with the city staff, but certainly I recognize in my professional life when I have been working with a team and in an organization, that sense of team is really essential. And if we have certain staff, if there are one or two or three staff that don't have a chair and a desk in an office, that staff member, that leader is actually excluded from the work of the team that needs to execute what's so vital in our city in a very difficult landscape. And, I think to some degree, this is an issue of trusting the voice of our leaders on staff in telling us what is bare bones basics in terms of being able to work on site and live together when they need to. And, I'm appreciating what I've heard from city staff in terms of the justification. I don't personally need to know the seating plan. I certainly trust what's been shared and think that this probably is not one area that we need to defer, but we need to prepare our city for exacting what needs to be done in 2024 and 25 and 26. And if we wait longer, they're not going to be settled enough to do that. So I am not going to support the deferral. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor LaChica. Councillor Burke.
Thanks. I think I just got to clear the air and rephrase it, like not to you, Joy, at all, but like I am not anti office space. I am not anti have your own place to sit and have your office with your name on it. That's not what I'm trying to say. What I'm trying to say is like show us the plan, show us what you're thinking, and let's not go $200,000 couple rooms at a time strategy. Let's look at the city as a whole and see how it's functioning and have a real 2050 vigorous enabling view on this that represents our strategic plan and that represents our leadership. I don't want to sit here and do this like $200,000 a room at a time because I think that's wasteful. Let's just pause on it, which is what Councillor Duguay is talking about, and maybe we need to have that plan that looks at how our space functions as a whole. Because these $200,000 things are killing us right now, and they're all through here. They're all through here, and they're all necessary, right? I need that leadership to have that vigorous, enabling bird's eye view on this and tell us what you need. Tell us what your plan is overall. Give us the steps on how we get there, and we'll find you the money, right? But I don't want to play Matlock through these vague projects and vague buildings that I don't know who it's for, when it's for, what. Like, that's wild to me that we're doing this. So I support the deferral, and let's get after it.
All right, thank you, Councillor Burke. Any further comments or questions? All right, moved by Councillor. Yeah, is that all right? Yeah, so moved by Councillor Duguay that the office renovations for the City Hall Northeast Building office renovations of $200,000 per page 52 be deferred until the second quarter of 2024. All right, we'll take a vote and e-scribe.
We will.
And that is carried. All right, everyone, we will take a 10-minute break. We've had some requests, so 10-minute, and then we'll be back to finish off the evening. Thanks, everyone.
more cost effectively. That's the sort of thing that we're trying to move to here. And so very, very few municipalities of our peers out there would actually follow the process like we do. And we need to move to a centralized procurement methodology. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Through the chair to certainly Mr. Freeman, I think my first term in council, there was a councillor, the late Jack Doris, and certainly he made a motion that one of the budget committees that no hires would be unless they were revenue neutral. And certainly there was quite a debate that night. Certainly with the advent of the amount of hires that are proposed in this budget, and certainly for next year, and certainly the adage is that we're right sizing the corporation. I think there's an absolute need. And when I look through all of the, and I know it's not on this page, the FTEs that were going to generate money was the enforcement officers for the city of Peterborough. Certainly we make bylaws all the time, and certainly there isn't a contingent or a part of it that is a revenue stream for us. So that's why I was asking the question. Certainly I can read through here as a corporate buyer and all this stuff. I mean, their job is to find the efficiencies and the best price for us. So that's why I asked the question.
Thank you, Councillor Reel. Councillor Burke.
Yeah, thanks through Chair Beamer to staff. Are the new hires and explanation of this program, was that through a report to council?
No, Mr. Chairman, it was not. It was in consultation with CAO Reyna and a decision at the senior leadership that this was a direction that we needed to move in to reduce our procurement risk, and hence it is put forward as a critical service enhancement from your senior staff.
Can you just explain to us how that works with the senior leadership to develop ideas like this and then make it happen? Do you guys meet regularly, and where did this idea come from?
Mr. Chairman, and I'll invite Mr. Reyna to supplement my comments if he feels necessary. The senior leadership actually meets weekly, and in terms of the issues of the day, and in carrying out the delegated authority that council has bestowed upon the administrative staff committee.
Yeah, so sorry, can I just jump in? My question actually is where does that delegated authority lie in terms of you at your meeting saying, well, we have delegated authority to put in the budget for these full-time employees and create this program?
I will take Richard.
CEO Arena.
So that comes from the CEO bylaw, and we meet every week, SLT, and our budget process for the next year will start in February. So we have a very extensive discussions. We do the benchmarking. Just for the information of the council, like we do send staff to the other municipalities. Like this year, we did send the clerk's staff to the city of Mississauga. Our director communication has also gone to other municipalities because that's one of the things which was missing here. So based on all those discussion, the future growth perspectives, we decide like which positions should be added. So we have a very, very extensive process. They are debated there and then they're included. And that's why they are recommended in the budget. But at the end of the day, it's the wish of the council. If they don't want to see that moving forward, we will follow that.
Yeah, thanks. As I said through the chair, it's not always as black and white for me as I don't want to see it versus, yes, let's support it fully as it's laid out. Where the point for me that's foggy is that personally, and I did it once over the summer when I was logging in virtually, I have numerous times critiqued the procurement policy. And the answers that I've received from staff have been, no, we have it in this way and that way. And so again, it's just one of these moments that catches me like blindsided. Because especially since this is an issue that I've brought up and I've been assured with a straight face that this is the way it's done and this is how we do it. And then so to now hear this and to see the cost attached to it, it's.
So first I will answer you through your chair, then Richard can answer, because that's the region, like we have done the reorg. The policy, there used to be a policy person in the CEO's office. So we have moved under the different location because we are reviewing all policies and all bylaws, but it takes time. It won't happen like within a month. So that's in the work plan, and Richard will jump in now because the whole citywide policies and procedures that's mentioned in the strategic plan too are being reviewed and they will be brought back to the council. Certain policies will be approved at the SLT level and the certain policy will come for approval to the council level.
Commissioner Freeman?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I remember well and recall well that conversation. And the reason why the individual staff are answering slightly differently is that in a decentralized model, they are following their process. Part of a centralized procurement is to centralize the process and the methodology and ensuring that it's one process, one methodology followed by the whole corporation. And that is critical. We do not want that's where the procurement risk lies, because we have different people doing different things. We need one process and everyone follows the process.
And through the chair, like my methodology is that at the grocery store, at the swimming, at my kids' swimming lessons, during the weekend on social media, like I'm the one that has to wear the weight of these decisions on the back of the taxpayer. And so for me to have people conflate these costs to something like Wolf Street or to something else, like it helps as a counselor who represents the public interest and has a unique role in all of this, because I am the person that has to be questioned about these things all the time, 24/7, right? It really helps me to understand what the plan is to get my constituents to buy into it. And I don't have that ability to right now. That's a big problem for me.
Thank you, Councillor Burke. I have Mayor Leal, Councillor Hakey, and Baldwin. Mayor Leal?
Thanks very much, Mr. Chair. Maybe I can put this in a bit of perspective. When I arrived here and was getting briefings from Richard and others, it's certainly, with the information given to me, that there was a significant weakness in the procurement apparatus here at the city of Peterborough. You don't want 6 people buying pens. And I know that's a pretty simple way of looking at it, but that's exactly what was going on. And I bet if we hired an auditing firm to do a value for money audit on our procurement process, they would recommend the staff hires that are in here to make sure, Councillor Burke, the individuals that you're talking to, the hardworking men and women that pay the freight in the city of Peterborough every day, they want you and I and everybody in this room to make sure they're getting value for every dollar that's spent. And I was convinced when I looked at some of this information that there was significant weakness and that it wouldn't stand up to a value for money audit. So this team here are bringing in some corrections to make sure that the citizens of Peterborough get every value they can out of a dollar spent.
Thank you, Mayor Leal. Councillor Hakey?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and through you to Richard. Richard, I don't know if you can tell me this, but out of the 38 positions, how many would be self-financing or self-liquidating, would support themselves, and how many would be mandated under any new rule changes that we haven't understood or spoken about yet, if that's possible?
Mr. Chairman, based upon the information here from Bill, Mr. McDougall, 5 are self-liquidating. And I believe that there are some, and I'm just going to peek around the corner here to Mr. Papadakis. I believe that some of his positions would be considered legislated, either through minimum maintenance standards, or in the case of operation of the Vector truck that's operating certain equipment. We need to operate that equipment to meet the standard. So I think that there are some, and I'm just not sure if we had the exact number.
If I could then leave it till tomorrow night, but I'd be interested in knowing that. You gave 5 as one answer, so that's partial, but that would be great. And sorry, I put you on the spot with that.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Hakey. Councillor Baldwin?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I think the mayor summarized it probably better than I would have. I just want to comment that, Mr. Chair, there's a common theme tonight, and it's just kind of rubbing me the wrong way. It's almost as if we're not testing our professional staff, but we're calling into question some of the recommendations that have been made. I have a problem with that. We have a professional staff that sit there. They meet weekly. I think they're still meeting on Wednesdays at 2:00. And I sent a series of questions to the subject experts last week. I sent you and the assistant finance chair, the vice chair questions. There are some recommendations in here with respect to procurement and 38.4 or 38.5 FTEs. Some of them are mandated by the provincial government. They continually change requirements, and we're obligated to implement some of those policies. But, you know, I don't want to spend 4 nights here questioning professional staff all the time. It's a budget process. I think some of what I've heard tonight is calling into question the professionalism and the integrity of our staff. And to be quite frank, I don't like that. That's what I'm hearing tonight. I don't think it's productive. I don't think it's professional. And I'd like us to focus on the budget, not looking at the integrity of our professional staff. I have a lot of respect for them. And I think we just need to get our ducks in order, and needed to say that, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Nope, thank you, Councillor Baldwin. Councillor Reel?
I'm sorry, but I totally disagree with my colleague. This is a budget process. And outside of the 11 that sit around here, I can tell you most people out there don't know who you are. And I'm talking about staff. So when I have to go into a grocery store or walk the street or answer numerous emails and phone calls to justify a budget, I think it's my job to ask the question. If any of my questions and you feel that I have belittled you or chided you in any way, then I apologize. But I will not apologize for a process we have here. I think there's an overall plan for the city, which I have no idea what the hell it is. It's in somebody's mind, and that's what I'm trying to get at here. If the city is going to be reorganized, then I'm a part of the reorganization because I have to give you the dollars to do it. And I have to go out into the public every day and justify the money that I am spending on their behalf. And like I said, when I started here tonight, if I have to spend 4 nights of going through line by line, justifying the hires, I will do that. I don't want to do that, but I will do that. And I'm not marching to the date of December 11th. I could care less about that date. I will be here until there is a final number of a budget that I think that I can live with to sell the constituents that I represent in the city of Peterborough. So if you think you could back me into a corner on December the 11th, you're crazy. Could care less about that date. Because I will get a number that I can live with, and then I can walk the streets of Peterborough and answer to the citizens of Peterborough that elected me, this is the number that we have to run the city of Peterborough. And right now I'm hearing that that number is too high. So if I have to go line by line and try and justify or carve out money to drive that number down, but also move the city forward, that was what I'm doing. That's a job I'm paid for. So I'm sorry if somebody's offended on the other side of the horseshoe, but this is the process we have. I think the process myself has to change. And I've done 14 of these, and I think they have to change. And this should be the last way we do this, where it's almost a bartering system for 4 nights, or asking staff to justify maybe decisions we have made in January of this year that I couldn't even remember.
Okay.
So I will continue. And if you think that I'm doing wrong or chiding you in any way, I will apologize now, but I'm not stopping. I'm here for 4 nights. And if you think it's going to be unpleasant, then I'm sorry. This is the process you have, and I will continue on going page by page.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Riel. And as we've chatted about, we have changed the budget process over the past 12 months, and we'll continue to work on it and enhance it and improve it. And it will evolve February and probably months and years as we move forward. So, Councillor Baldwin, and then we'll.
Yeah, just quickly, Mr. Chair. I don't always disagree with my my councillor colleague, but I am going to disagree tonight. Certainly I get as many, well, maybe not as many, but I get quite a few phone calls and emails, just like everybody else around the table. But I think there's a way to go about it. And I haven't heard staff complain tonight verbally about the process. That's the inference I've made. It's not sitting well with me. So it's got nothing to do with staff. It's got something to do with, you know, a third term counselor that doesn't like the process in terms of what I'm hearing tonight. And maybe I'm off track, but I'm kind of sensing there's a bit of an attack on staff, not on the finance piece. And I think there's a way to do it without calling into question the integrity of our professional staff. That's all I'm saying. Absolutely. We can go through line by line. That's part of the process. I get it. And staff has taken the 3 budget books and put them down to one comprehensive one. We're going through it page by page. I've heard you start on page 29 and we're now on page 58. But again, maybe I'm making an incorrect inference. I don't think so, Mr. Chair. I just think we should stick to the budget and deal with the numbers we're dealing with. But we've been talking since we developed our strategic plan of 2050. And I heard our CEO talk the other day about 2080. I certainly won't be here in 2080, but there's a vision here. We can't always be looking to the past. We have to look to the future. There's a new way of doing business, but let's do it in a professional way, keeping in mind the integrity of our professional staff. That's all I'm asking for, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Councillor Baldwin. Councillor Burke?
Yeah, I mean, I think I just have to speak up here and through the chair that I'm sorry if any adjectives that I used were personal, and it's not my intent, but you know, I do connect with staff. I've talked to Mr. Freeman on the phone probably 5 times today, and I'm getting some mixed messages about what this process is going to be, because we have a budget book that's 1 instead of 3. And so there is a lot of reading between the lines that we have to do. And this is the public forum in which it happens. And we heard from Mr. Freeman in the first presentation that this is the chance. He said council might not have approved these employees, which is the lion's share of the budget. We're looking at a 9.59% tax increase. And from my reading in here, a lion's share of that internally was from those hires, whatever it is, whatever that number is. So I don't know another way to do it besides ask the questions. I'll do my best to be respectful, but I think that we heard from Mr. Freeman that this is the time and the place to get into it. I think you even said that, Councillor Baldwin. You said tonight is the way we do it, right? And so we are going through, and this is another example. We have IT in a budget for community services that has had to find efficiencies. We have an IT department that's 17.7% over. And then when you dig into that, why is it over? Well, because of the hire. So this is what it is. This is what it is. And I don't know, I just want to, I take to heart your energy, and I'll do my best to be respectful, but I think that I'm prepared to dig in all week with this stuff because it's what we do.
All right. Thank you, Councillor Burke. So we'll Councillor Baldwin?
Just finally, Mr. Chair, I think you have to trust our professional staff to some degree. I don't think we need to call into question every single thing. I mean, it's go over it, overview it, but just again, do it in a respectful way. I trust our staff. I hope I'm not the only one around the council that does. They know what they're talking about. So.
Thank you, Councillor Baldwin. So no, I want to thank our staff. I trust our staff. I appreciate our staff. And, you know, I think everyone knows around this council table, we always need to be respectful for one another, whether it's our councillor colleagues or whether it's staff. And certainly we can never question each other's integrity or character. We may have different thoughts on a vote or different thoughts on a project, but we never want to question each other's character or integrity. I can tell you everyone in this room wants to do what's best for the community and for the residents, and we might have different viewpoints, and that's a good thing, right? If every vote was 11-0, I don't know if that's good democracy. So we want good debate and passionate debate, but we can never question staff's integrity, staff's professionalism, staff's character, and neither can we question our colleagues around the table's character or passion or integrity either. So let's just move on. We have 8 more pages for this evening. Information Services, 58. Counselor Crowley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So maybe to you, Commissioner, Counselor, Commissioner. The shift of 4 full-time equivalents. Well, it talks about on page 59. Sorry, about the shift of allocation of PTS staff to the city. Can you just explain that just a little bit?
Mr. Chairman, I would invite Ms. Carrie Ruska to come up to the podium. Carrie's our Director of IT. I'm not sure if Carrie's been here or participated verbally, but certainly want to take the opportunity to introduce her to council. I think in August presentations, Mr. Jamie Haig was here, and Carrie is actually Jamie's boss, and oversees all of IT on behalf of both the utilities and the city. And she is the perfect person to answer the councillor's question.
Welcome. And you can lift that up if that's helpful. No, I meant the desk. The desk. Yeah, you probably do.
So you're interested, through you, Mr. Chair, you're interested in understanding the increase in resourcing. So the 17% that we talked about there in the IT budget comes from our primary concern right now is after hours cybersecurity support. And we're looking at having a managed services company available to us that would allow sort of that breadth of skills that you need to deal with a cyber incident if it happens while we're away from work, while we're asleep. We're concerned about that. To support that, there would be an additional on-site person because we have personal information and so on. We can't open up the keys to the kingdom. So we have someone on site that would have to be available as well. We have a request. We've had numerous requests for help with data. Social services is one of them. They're looking for help with understanding the homelessness program and the daycare program. So we're looking at a Power BI, they call it, something in the Microsoft suite area to come and help with that. And on top of that, we're rolling out SharePoint quite heavily to help with the records management program. People are now seeing the power of that tool and are banging on our door saying, hey, can we do this with that? Can we do this with that? So that's kind of where that staff complement is coming from. It's from cybersecurity. It's coming from Power BI and data, helping people with data, helping people manage SharePoint. So and SAP is another one. We have half a body essentially worth of consulting services that we use to help move the program forward. We're thinking with another half a body, we can make that a full-time and start to, really start to harness the power of SAP. We have a lot of people, again, now that they're using it saying, hey, I think I could do this with it. I think I could do that with it. And we just like to have somebody available to help people with that.
Is there, sorry, through you, Mr. Chair. So thank you, Carrie, for that. That's great. Are there any positions that you feel could potentially defer to next year, just in your opinion? Any positions that would be like the Power BI, or I know that you're talking about SAP and bringing SharePoint inside. Are any of those nice to haves as opposed to the need to haves? For example, like the data analyst that you're suggesting?
That one is tied directly to, I think there's some funding that social services can get sort of on the side where they're able to use the data, but what they can't do is get their hands on the data in a safe, secure way.
Right.
So they're not able to capitalize on the funding to get these positions that are, to answer those questions. Is my homelessness program effective? Is my daycare program effective? So that's kind of, that one I'd have to defer sort of that business unit to say, can they forego that?
Right.
On the SAP side, again, it's sort of, we have this tool that we've just put in. There's an opportunity there. I think the efficiencies and so on could be had. We could just go at a slower pace and stick with sort of that consulting services. I think it would, I don't think it would hurt, kill the city, but I do think there's opportunity there to be had for sure.
Thank you very much for that. That's great. And just supplemental, how many is our IT staff? Are they city staff?
So that we get asked that quite a bit. We're technically on the PUG payroll. So that's really, but I would say we're 85%. 85% of the work we do is for the city. And mostly we're when we're sitting in the building, we're here. We're very rarely at the utility. So PUG runs the payroll for us, essentially, is how it's working right now. But we consider ourselves through and through city employees.
So through you, Mr. Chair, the cybersecurity person, would they be a city employee or would they be a?
They would still be hired through the utilities until we decide to change that our
That model?
approach. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, perfect. I swear to God, this is my last question.
Your time, the night's young.
I do have, I mean, heck, everyone else is talking. Maybe I'll get. I do have a question. If I can hop ahead just for 1 second to page 62, city technology projects and capital improvements. I know part of that is it talks about server replacements, network redundancy. That, do we have an idea of? I think it says in it's 381 or 250,000 this year. 250,000, I believe, is what it is this year. I could be off a little bit, roughly. Is that, how much of that is tied into just hardware replacement in terms of, I apologize, I'm so sorry, Karen.
Yeah, no worries. I'm just gonna, security there. I got locked out of my computer. When I was talking.
Oh, there you go.
And I'm back in.
With the new hardware, how much of that is with tied to the new hires? I mean, I guess my question is, it appears that in the budget, it's more or less for sort of laptop device replacement around the or around the corporation. But I mean, I would think that that would be non-essential personally, just for 1 year to just roll with your laptop for 1 more year. But how much of that is sort of hardware replacement, data room replacement, networking? And I mean,
100% life cycle replacement.
okay,
So we generally keep things, and we do often look for opportunities to extend the life of servers. So will be recommended it's a 5-year lifespan.
Yeah.
If we think it's fine, we've pushed it to 7. You start to pay more and more for maintenance on those things as you push them out, right? The folks who provide that maintenance to us, they start to charge us a lot more for that. So beyond 7, it doesn't make sense really. So I think a lot of these things in here, we do as much as possible, extend the life of phones and laptops and servers.
Yeah.
But, at some points it does become, it's you have to replace them.
so I know I'm putting you on the spot, so maybe I can ask, is there a way to get a little bit of a breakdown on that of what might be used for, phone, laptop, hardware, stuff like that? Or would it just be, it's just a general 250,000 and it's for those
No, we have specific,
upgrades?
we keep track of everything. So it'll be switches, and certain switches are certain ages. So we roll them through like maybe a third at a time, push, each year we have switches that we have to replace.
I'm just wondering if maybe there's a chance that we can just save a little bit of funding there by maybe reusing some old hardware for 1 more year. But if that's at all possible, maybe to Commissioner Freeman, is it possible to get like that? Not now.
We can break it down for
Would
sure.
that be possible to get a little breakdown of that? And I mean, maybe even if there's $25,000 in there that we can actually sort of just move out to next year, it's something, maybe? Is that possible? Through you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chairman, we can certainly take it away and provide some additional details to council about what's included in that 250 and the age of some of the equipment, and bring that, I could perhaps
It's not
put that information together tomorrow and send it to council for your consideration.
Whenever you can. That's fantastic. I
Yeah, we
appreciate that.
can. I think we're generally pretty lean. I think you'll find that we are generally pretty lean. There's big ticket items in here this year, the SAN, and then next year will be our VM hosts.
Yep.
So I think you'll see some of those, and those are pushed out to 7 years. So
Okay, so those are at about 7 years right now, you
Yeah.
think? Oh, okay.
yeah.
Excellent.
So there are some other devices in there. We can certainly show you what's in there, but
Sure.
yeah, we generally are pretty lean.
Perfect. All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Carrie.
Thank you very much, Councillor Crowley. Councillor Reel and Duguay. Councillor Reel.
Through the chair to Mr. Freeman, certainly the money that flows from the city to PUC, I should know the answer to this. I sit on the PUC board. So how much money is carved out for the operation of this through PUC? So you're giving them so much money to operate the IT, which was PUC. 85% of the use is for the city. So how much money is carved out to operate PUC on the IT side of their business? Any idea? Is that?
Mr. Freeman?
So I'll invite Ms. Ruska if she has any additional comments. So just to do a quick review here for council. So So the IT group works under the Peterborough, the PUG group of companies, which is under Kofi. The PUC sits to the side and is not. So there is an element. So the IT group provides IT services to the PUC, but the payroll that carry, that the organizational piece of the structure that they're under is the Peterborough Utility Group of companies. I think it's probably PUSI. It's under Kofi, not PUC. So just to clarify that. But I believe, Carrie, that the city is paying to PUG. What would be the total contracted service there?
Yeah, so the share of it's about 2 million, but it's a complete, just to be clear, there is no markup. It is complete, absolute cost sharing. That's really what it is. So we keep track of the cost, and the way we do it, we budget every year, and we say this is the amount. It's 85% going to the city, and 15% going to the utilities. Throughout the year, we keep track of all of our costs, and at the end, we true it up. So if there is any difference, we pay that remaining month and we true it up completely. It's based on the exact salaries and the exact expenses of the devices that are shared. To be honest, very few things are shared anymore. There was a time when it made more sense to share some of the devices. Now, wherever we can, we say it makes sense to not share devices. We share some things like DR servers. So those things that you only need in the event of a disaster. No sense having 2 piles of servers sort of sitting for both organizations. We sort of say, let's plan to share that. So very few devices are shared. It's mostly the salaries that get shared. And it really is based on the exact costs. That makes sense. Did I answer your question?
Through the chair again, I mean, where I was going here, if this is a server that's 85% used by the city and an external company, which is the IT, which is through the Kofi group of companies, it would make sense to me if there was and I'm talking about the overhead costs for Kofi and some money is hived off, it would be to our advantage, and we're using 85% of it to bring it in-house. That's where I was heading.
Mr. Chairman, I don't disagree with the comments.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Reel. I have Councillor Duguay and Burt. Councillor Duguay.
Thank you, Chair Beamer. I had 2 quick questions on page 61. They speak to city department projects.
Okay.
The first, I'd like to, just some clarification. On the right-hand side of the page, it lists a series of projects, and one is referenced as 895, which is the accessible van booking system, $100,000. I'm not sure who staff, is that price confirmed or is it an estimate at this time?
It would be an estimate at this time. We haven't done any RFPs, be high-level estimates in terms of maybe what we've seen from vendors and so on, but we try to not even reach out to vendors for pricing until we go through the full and formal process.
I can say, for the benefit of council, the Transit Liaison Committee and Councillor Rell will recall that the issue around booking of our accessible or integrated vans is a very complicated subject. So I'd be really interested to see how this unfolds. On the last item, which is referenced as 871, which is $100,000 allocated for library staff scheduling software. Could you elaborate or just provide some information about that expense?
Yeah, so the background on that one is a rostering system to sort of make sure you have the staff available. And we were looking at, could we possibly have a more generic rostering system that would allow, because the city does rostering for other services as well with other staff as well. So we were looking at trying to fulfill their need. And I know they've had some difficulties down there with staffing issues and keeping things sorted out. So I think that's why that one's bubbled up as a library sort of initiative, and they're sort of driving that rostering forward.
So if I understand, is it library specific and meeting their sort of idiosyncrasies, or do we have, because of the arena division, for example, would they have comparable software?
We would like to look at a generic or a rostering service that could be used for multiple, but we're finding a lot of the rules, the magic comes in the rules of those collective agreements and those rules of how you choose who goes when and where and so on. So we're trying to find out, the idea would be to try to get something that could be used for more than one place, but we're not 100% sure until we dig into it that there is such a thing as a generic rostering software.
So lastly, Mr. Chairman, then it's possible that we may not need this expense if we can find something that's generic that's already available within our house, so to speak.
Not within the house, but I think it's still, and again, you still have to do a lot of implementation work to get the specific library rules built into it. So even if we have a software that is available that does rostering, it's the implementation services that probably would cost. I don't know that would cost a full 100,000, but it's going to cost quite a bit to implement the specific needs of the library.
And then does this also reflect the ultimately, or is it anticipating ultimately the La Fosse Library, its reopening, which is scheduled at a later time, but would it be accommodating same?
It would accommodate all the library rostering needs, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Burke. Councillor Duguay, Councillor Burke.
Thanks, Chair Beamer. Through you to Miss Rusky. Is it Rusky?
Ruska,
sorry, thank you. I remember you, I think, from our council orientation. And it just sort of sparked my memory because I heard at that point about the cybersecurity approach, and I think it was a budgetary ask last term. Can you just go over briefly, please, what the cybersecurity approach was in this year and how next year is going to be different?
So in this year, again, there's a numerous, you start to see the things that are going on in the world out there. They're getting more and more creative. AI is making it easier for them to send out things that are easier to dupe us. They can send out things that, it doesn't have all those spelling errors that we think. It sounds like as if we said it can sound like somebody's voice that you can be tricked by. So we've put there, your first line of defense is to educate. So we've been educating, but we are in a world where people have to click links to do their jobs. And we know they're going to have to click links, and we know someone's going to make a mistake. So then that next level, we try to then, you have to make sure that you minimize anything that does get in. So we've done some specific things without boring you too much with the technology details. We've separated our backups. One thing we did this year, we've separated our backups from our regular pile of data. So if something happens and they encrypt, what they do is they encrypt your data, and then they charge you to get your data back. We said as well, let's make sure that our backups are done differently. So at the very least, we can get our backups back. This encryption can't go through to our backups. So that's one of the key things we've done this year.
Thank you, Councillor Burke. All right, thank you so much. So moving on, next generation, 911, 62. Corporate other capital, 63. 64. Development study charge, 65. All right, legislative services. Legislative services, 66. $67, legislative services capital. City clerk, operating budget, 68.
Mr. Chairman, if I might.
Councillor Duguay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Kennedy, Mr. Clerk, I believe the date, our December meeting date, December 4. I will be bringing forth a motion similar to ask council to consider adopting a resolution, and that we would advise, I believe, the Attorney General that a need to update the Freedom of Information Act. I've looked at, we have a municipal employee, if I'm correct, if I might, Mr. Clerk, I think we have a municipal employee who deals with Freedom of Information requests. And it's, we are living in an environment where such requests are made of our municipality, of council, and we consider tonight's forum. This has to be the most open and transparent process imaginable. Everything we say is being recorded. All the minutes are being recorded. It's a very open and transparent process, but there are times when Freedom of Information requests are made, and we have to provide, and we have to redact all that same information and provide it to inquiring parties. I look further in the budget, Mr. Clerk, and I don't believe as a revenue stream, we don't generate a lot of money from Freedom of Information, but we have to produce a lot of information at an expense to the ratepayer. So on December 4th, there'll be a motion coming forward. I'm just letting council know. And I have a question procedurally if I can, to Mr. Kennedy or perhaps Mr. Potts. On Freedom of Information, are we allowed to modify our fees for services so that it is fully cost recoverable? Wages, photocopying, like, or would we be stepping outside of the jurisdictional bounds?
Mr. Chair, thank you for the question. The legislation is very prescriptive, and the regulations mandate what 444 Ontario municipalities can charge. So we're not permitted to set our own rates. Things like, as the councillor indicated, for photocopies, as an example, those are prescribed in the regulations. So we're mandated by the current NFIPA, or Municipal Freedom of Information Protection and Privacy Act, and the associated regulations as to what we can charge for recovery of fees. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Mr. Kennedy for the information, but I'm just, as a heads up to council, I'll be that resolution. I think it's timely and necessary because Mr. Kennedy has referred to a phenomenon where our hands are tied. We have to produce information, and it is costing the taxpayers a lot of money. And the experience that we were hearing from AMO, from many of our colleagues, is that quite often the requests made are frivolous in nature. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Duguay. All right, any further comments, questions on 68? '69? Court services, operating budget, 70? '71? Municipal Law Enforcement Services operating budget, 72. Councillor Reel, 72.
Through the chair, this is the first hires I've seen that I claim to be revenue neutral. I think there's an absolute need. I've sat here and we pass bylaws that have no teeth. We pass a bylaw and then there is no enforcement. And certainly I think all of us every week get complaints from constituents. Either somebody has built an illegal apartment, a light perforation on their property, and then just the enforcement certainly that we've had to go through with our tenant bylaw. So I see this as a move forward for us to certainly start to put some teeth into the bylaws that we pass here that can be enforceable. I can remember going back and we looked at some bylaws. There used to be one, I think it was 1929, that a person of color could not be out past 6 o'clock at night. I only say that because I think the bylaws need to be looked at, but was enforceable and why we need enforcement for these bylaws. And I think that this is a way for us to generate not only using this service to administer the bylaws we have, but certainly I think it'll be revenue neutral when they get out there doing the job that we want them to do.
Thank you, Councillor Reel. 72, anyone? 73? Councillor Burke, 73.
Yeah, just a couple questions for staff, please, through the chair. I guess it would be to Commissioner Potts. Can you please describe because I guess one of the asks is for the vehicles that have the specific function to detain and arrest individuals. Can you speak to that, please?
Mr. Chair, yes, the total capital budget is $250,000 for vehicles. One is a replacement vehicle, 50,000. The other two start at a base of 50,000 each, but for the additional equipment and detailing that's required for occasional detention and the carrying out of the functions, that's what those two vehicles are for. The reason is, as council is aware, in some manner of municipal law enforcement from time to time, including particularly around Section 9 of the Trespass to Property Act, an owner of property that is trying to enforce a trespass notice has the jurisdiction, and in the city's case, it's been delegated as is necessary in a municipal corporation, has the jurisdiction to initiate an arrest. And in those circumstances where it's necessary, then they immediately call Peterborough Police Service, who continue the arrest and deal with the rest of it. But for the health and safety of the person in question, when it happens, and for staff and security services, that's the reason for the two vehicles. Thank you.
Through the chair, because I guess this is another example where the recommendations in the report looked at those sorts of things, including the uniforms and vehicles as the quote from the consultant report, and the recommendations that we passed as the long-term version of that plan. So can you just please explain the rationale for the immediate implementation of that?
Thank you for the question. The immediate implementation is the day-to-day enforcement of the city's trespass bylaw and its parks and facilities bylaw. It's a present need.
And so is this, through the chair, is this gonna be an example of something, I think we heard from Commissioner Freeman that we had about close to $1 million per year of private security cost that we were using. Are we gonna find savings for this from those costs?
Thank you for the question. Mr. Chair, another set of responsibilities is being consolidated. Council has heard comments from earlier presentations and answers about the consolidation of functions to gain efficiencies, and the city's various security services under various contracts administered by different people and divisions around the city are all being consolidated under this manager that has been put in place, Mr. Middleton. And it is the plan is that there will be efficiencies gained from that one centralized administration of security services, and the efficient deployment of those resources in consultation with Peterborough Police Service, because they have functions, as council knows. The Police Services Act is being repealed and replaced, and one of the changes is the level of service to exclude the provision of municipal law enforcement services. So this is all part of that strategy, and things that are really being imposed on the city, but also council deciding to enforce its own standards.
Thank you. Through the chair, I think my experience on council, through the way that I'm communicated by residents, has been about very consistently about property standard things. And I know that there's a house that I drive by a lot that has since not been sort of redeveloped since the fire happened pre-COVID. And then, so when I was like historically given these issues where people were upset or wanting to enforce property standards on these properties, I was told that there was a huge, at that point, it was like a year-long backlog to those things. Can you please just update council as to where we're at with those? You might have to translate what I just said, but I think you get it.
I do. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I hesitate to use the word excited because I'm not sure that would be taken the right way, but the plan for municipal law enforcement services is the version 2.0 of a number of regulatory bylaws, and council has seen a few of those. Recently, the waste collection bylaw, to the councillor's point, it includes an enforcement component. And already there are some that are beyond the education component, and maybe it's time for some threshold level of enforcement. The tree removal bylaw. The council in its March 27th approval of the recommendations in response to IPS BD 23001, the municipal law enforcement report to which the councillors referred, specifically identified a light pollution bylaw as one of the bylaws that council would like to see. So council is going to be seeing a redo of regulatory bylaws. I would think in some instances a repeal of some that are just never going to be enforced, and the replacement with a core set of regulatory standards that address what the stats will demonstrate are the 5 greatest complaints: light pollution, noise pollution, lot maintenance, boulevard maintenance, and parking, like parking on yards and the like. Council had before it at the last general committee meeting, the foundational piece for those bylaws, which is the inspection bylaw. And the inspection bylaw will is basically council passing a bylaw to implement the powers that the Municipal Act already provides for, but that are crucial to be implemented by bylaw. And that'll be up for approval on November 27th. That's a critical piece of this go forward. And that relates to being able to step off the road allowance, to step onto a yard, and for example, to enforce the light pollution bylaw. So all of these things are happening. And I think council will see better bylaws that are enforced. We may even see Part 3 prosecutions coming up to legal services. I've never seen one in 5.5 years in the city of Peterborough. So this is about the birth of a municipal law enforcement service and funding it. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Burke. I have Councillor Purnell and Duguay. Councillor Purnell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioner Potts actually highlighted some of the comments I was going to make, but I will have a question at the end. And basically, civil society does need rules. And to be fair to the people out there who are following the rules, there has to be enforcement for those people, education and enforcement for those who do not follow the rules. And we've heard that now we have to have municipal employees take on some of the duties, i.e. the noise bylaw that used to be handled by the police. That legislation is changing. We know that a lot of our property standards enforcement officers, we get a report every week, how much time and effort and revenue and funding goes to illegal campsites, encampments throughout the city, which we all get complaints about all the time. And we want to try and keep those people safe as well as the neighborhoods. We have so many property standards issues throughout the city that we're not getting to fast enough because we don't have the staff to deal with the volume. Parking issues. Every single time there's an event at the Memorial Center, all of a sudden people think, oh, parking rules don't count when there's an event. Well, yes, they do. You can't block people into their own driveways or park in front, like on both sides of the street, though that's for emergency vehicle access. So we need people to actually enforce these rules. Now, I did not write an email earlier to prepare Commissioner Potts for this question, so maybe just if you could answer tomorrow. I don't want to put you on the spot tonight, sir, but if you can maybe give council an idea of the percentages of what is the effort of our current enforcement officers. I know we're not into the noise bylaw yet, but is it property standards? Is it the encampments? What is taking up their time now? Is it parking? If you can just give us an idea percentage-wise of where our resources are going right now. But I do fully support, we need these enforcement officers, Mr. Chair. And obviously they're going to need the tools to keep themselves and other people safe. So this is one of those areas that we need. And so I do support it, and I'll leave that with you, Mr. Potts, please, Commissioner Potts. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Purnell. Councillor Duguay.
Thank you, Chair Beamer. To CAO Reyna. Sir, we've had some discussions on this subject and you've referenced it previously in these chambers. But my take of the necessity for effective bylaw enforcement, what it would mean is that an employee would, correct me if I'm wrong, an employee, one of our staff would show up to a property in a vehicle that clearly says City of Peterborough. They would disembark from the vehicle and approach the property clearly in a uniform that says City of Peterborough, not unlike police, fire, or paramedic arriving at an emergency, where we don't have, I believe we do not have either the vehicles or the necessary vehicles, nor do we have a uniform that would denote or made known to the public that is a bylaw enforcement officer. Sir, Mr. Reyna, that is one of the outcomes of this project, correct?
Through you, Mr. Chair. That's 100% correct, because they will have the uniform, they will have the badges on their shoulders, the cars will be marked with the City of Peterborough response unit, and they will have the professional badges when they go there. So it will be a properly uniformed force there.
Thank you for that. Supplementary, then I'm finished. Mr. Potts, if I understood correctly, that we would be council receiving from you a supplementary report, some additional bylaw, or a report that would allow us to consider adopting some additional bylaw, looking at removing archaic or redundant bylaws and introducing those that are in response to the demonstrated priority enforcement initiatives. I think you named 5 as an example. Is that correct?
Correct. And there's also, if I may, Mr. Chair, there's been a site alteration bylaw that's been drafted and is in front of staff for review. Thank you.
Lastly, to Mr. Potts, will the new bylaw, the forthcoming bylaw and its respective changes, will it be one that could generate revenue for the municipality?
Revenue is always an interesting discussion about municipal law enforcement, prosecutions, and the like. There's nothing wrong with cost recovery. We don't, the purpose of a fine and the purpose of a penalty, an administrative monetary penalty, the purpose of a fine in a court proceeding in a prosecution is to punish. Purpose of an administrative penalty is to encourage compliance. There is nothing wrong with talking about cost recovery as an ancillary benefit. And certainly you can imagine when one is responsible for administering the resources, it's a focal point. That's an obscure answer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That answers my questions.
Thank you, Councillor Duguay. 75, Realty Service Operating Budget. 76. Legal Services, 77. And we're done our first night. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, staff. My colleagues, tomorrow we have 100 pages and 7 reports. So I would just encourage you to be as effective and you know what I mean, really effective tomorrow. Succinct. We're in adjournment. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, staff. See you tomorrow.